Thomas into the circle. To Kyrou. Diving save on a split there. They get it back, and the referee's going to wave it off. The puck was covered up by the goalie. Came back out underneath his glove. Blues put it in, and it's waved off.
This is just the way the game's going right now, and this should have been a goal.
He never had it.
Should have been a goal.
Oh, my goodness. Centers. Thomas. Check the buzzer. Shoots it high. And another banner reader for Robert Thomas.
Man.
He's had about 3 of them this year like that.
Well, he's had 2 in this game.
Shooter again. This shot goes in, but no, the horn had started before it went in.
I don't think so.
And so this one's going to get waved off.
I mean, it's just, again, a bounce and a little bit more bad luck. I haven't seen this much bad luck in a long time.
That's what it sounded like right here on 101 ESPN last night as the St. Louis Blues losing that game. And I feel like we on this show watched a very different game than what it feels like the vast majority of our listening audience did. We'll get into that here in just a moment. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, how you feeling, buddy?
Not good. I can't move any part of my body other than my head, and this duct tape is attached to my arm hair, and every time I move, it rips some of the arm hair out. So, not good.
For those of you that want to watch as Alex is punished for the next 3 hours, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is the place where you can do so. Alex is sitting in a chair, duct taped to it, arms to his side, cannot move for the next 3 hours. Alex is truly in hell as he can't get out of the studio to get away from me.
I feel like Hannibal Lecter
until 2 o'clock.
I feel like Hannibal Lecter. Just give me one of those masks. Sit here like this today. That's what I feel like. I have to move the microphone with my face. There is no cough button for me, so if I have to cough or sneeze,
just let me know, man. I got you.
It's just going to be out in the open.
I want the people to hear it.
There's no...
I want you to sneeze just so you look like the little kid with like snack going down your nose.
Well, and I got a beard too. That's not going to help. So
I feel like you are my 1-year-old child right now, where I kind of have to do a little bit of everything for you. Like you're going to try to do things on your own, just like Luca does, and then he's like, I can't do this.
Well, you guys taped me before we walked in the studio, and I'm like, okay, well, headphones, mic muff, put my computer down.
It was so loud, too, with the duct tape ripping that people in the sales staff started walking around like, what's going on in the hallway?
People were wondering, why is there duct tape that seems to be a never-ending strand? Yeah. And the reason is because Alex needed an entire roll of duct tape to be held in.
Alex didn't need a whole roll. I just needed you to go around once or twice. And then on top of it, they're spinning me in the chair, so if you want me to vomit, fine. Let's do it this way, boys. But this is my life.
This is what happens when you suck at picking football games.
Where are you at on this one this month?
Shouldn't have collapsed in week 3.
I'm watching you, so that way I hope that I avoid defeat.
God, it's on the arm hair. This is actually like a double punishment because I'm also taped, but I think I'm getting waxed right now as we're sitting in the seat. By the end
all
of this,
I know is that the place where you waxed my chest, I still don't grow hair.
Yeah, well, I double waxed that one.
It's just one little spot. Yeah, you did it the wrong way.
No, I did it the right way. I did it the wrong way on purpose, so it was the right way.
Okay. He's Alex the Steve, I'm BK. If you want to watch again, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is the place where you can go to see Alex as he's punished for the rest of the day. Alex, I feel like there's been some panic that's taking place in Blues fandom today.
No. 4 games in?
Yeah, they're 2-2. They lost last night 4-1. And I feel as though I watched a different game than seemingly everybody else. As Alex trying to scratch his eye with his microphone.
Itch.
This is going to be hard to keep character, but here we are.
Good luck not breaking.
I felt like the Blues played fine last night.
Yeah.
I felt like they had a bunch of bad breaks go their way. They had some bad penalties that, work the correct call, objectively, the correct call. It just, bad penalties that happens. You got to be more disciplined. A few pucks that they put on net that didn't go in, good high danger chances. Couple of them that did go in that unfortunately one was stopped by the official because he couldn't see the puck, and T-Bone's going to tell you that it was a tough call by the... No, he blew it.
Hey, T-Bone supports the pinstripes, all right?
And losers that boo them.
Another one where Ryan Suter literally half a second too late got it into the back of the net. Just bad luck there. I felt like the Blues played mostly fine last night, and honestly, for the first 2 periods, I thought they played really well. It just came out on the losing end. That happens sometimes.
I mean, look, you don't like to say it, and it frustrates people, but there was a lot of unlucky bounces that happened last night for the Blues. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to target the non-high stick call that was really a high stick, and if you missed it, Justin Falk and Drew Bannister both both said afterwards and confirmed there was a high sticking play that took place in the defensive zone, and the Blues didn't touch the puck until Faber fell down, and people thought that was the high sticking. There was a high sticking call. Yes, the whistle was blown early, but you also need to kill off those situations in front of you. You need the penalty kill. You need to be able to absorb things that don't happen your way and push back. It's what the Blues did so well in the first two games, to where things didn't go their way. The San Jose game is a perfect example. They had bounces that went against them, including a Macklin Celebrini first NHL goal where he didn't even shoot it, and they found a way to push back. Last night they didn't. But I didn't feel like they were the worst team on the ice. In fact, I thought Minnesota was the worst team on the ice. Yeah. They capitalized on a power play. They got a shorthanded chance off of a great bounce off of our partition. And then the Blues started to try and take chances in the third period because they were down by 2, and Minnesota pounced on it. Minnesota did a good defensive game in terms of blocking the shot attempts by St. Louis. But for the St. Louis Blues, in the second period alone, yes, it was 2-0. You did not allow a shot on goal other than the shorthanded goal for 16 minutes. Overall, the Blues just didn't get the puck bouncing for them into the back of the net where they could score. Minnesota did get some lucky bounces their way, and that's how a game like that goes. But if you look at Corsi rating, if you go back through the first 4 games on Natural Stat Trick and look at the Corsi rating, which measures puck possession, 2 of the 3 periods in all 4 games, the Blues were the better opponent than the team that they were playing against. So I wasn't that upset about it. I think there are things that need to be tightened up for St. Louis, but overall, I thought that was a pretty competitive game.
I thought in the first 2 periods, especially to your point, Alex, the Blues were the better team, and they were playing better, and unfortunately, sometimes, despite playing better, you don't get the results that you deserve.
Totally.
Sometimes I know people disagree with this, but the better team doesn't always win. Sometimes the lesser team wins, and you don't have to apologize for it. The Blues will be on that side of games this year. Hell, they already have been, in my opinion, on the side where they were not the better team, but they found a way to win. You don't have to apologize when that happens for you, but when it happens against you, we can also be honest and say, hey, you're the better team and you lost, and sometimes that happens. You play 82 of these things, you're going to come out on the wrong side of things occasionally. But when you look at what they were able to do, like scoring chances at 5-on-5 the first 2 periods, they outchanced the Wild last night in the first 2 periods 24-12. Literally doubled them up at 5-on-5, which has been an issue for the Blues at times. They had the better 5-on-5 offense. At 5-on-5 high danger chances, Blues had 10 in the first 2 periods. The Wild had 3. 3 high danger chances in the first 2 periods combined. Yeah. They were playing shutdown hockey. They were getting some good offensive chances. That's actually some of the best hockey we've seen the Blues play all season up to this point. Unfortunately, the puck didn't go into the back of the net prior to the end of prior to the buzzer or prior to the ref seeing it. And that happens. But I came away from last night being like, I thought they were fine. And then I heard some of the reaction today. I've been like, do we watch different games? I don't know.
And here's the other thing, too, because I've seen a lot of people on what I can see because I can't check anything on my laptop. I've seen people say, well, the third period got out of hand. Yes, the third period got out of hand, but talking with Braden Shen pregame, he even said, like, look, when you're behind in games, you've got to start taking chances on stuff. So you kind of you omit defense for more offense. And that's what happened. 43 seconds into that third period, the Blues were trying to rush up the ice and instead turned the puck over and it went Minnesota's way and they got the odd man rush. I can't judge the third period for St. Louis of how bad it looked because they were already down by 2 goals. I go off of the first 2 periods where you were tied, down by 1, then down by 2. You outplayed Minnesota. So overall, there are things to fix up because offensively for the Blues, there's not a lot of sustained zone time. You're still seeing one and dones. You didn't kill off that power play, which you probably should have at that moment of the game, but Minnesota sucked the life out of you pretty quickly. But if I'm going for a full 60 or even a 40 minutes of where they were, it's hard to be upset when we were concerned about their offense this season when you're dominating the opponent as much as they were in terms of shot and shot attempts.
Yeah, if you leave a game saying that, hey, if we play like that, we probably win the next game, probably means you played a pretty good hockey game. You know, I don't think they could leave the game against Seattle and probably say that. You know, they had one really good offensive period.
Yeah, you had a second period.
And that was it. If you play good hockey for 2.5 periods, then you're probably going to win a lot of games. Like, I just looked this up and look, this is one of those fancy numbers BK would love. It's the deserve to win-o meter percentage.
Oh, I love the meter.
Yeah, the money puck.
I love that meter.
54.5% in favor of the Blues.
There's going to be another deserve to win-o-meter coming up on the New York Times website here in a few weeks. Not to get political, but that's another one.
I don't want to get political, but
if you're on the red side, you're like, oh no, let's go to the blue. And if you're on the blue side, it's like, it's going to the red. It's, you know.
But by the way, if you believe in the deserve-o-meter, the Blues deserve to win-o-meter was 3 of the 4 games that they played so far. It was San Jose, Vegas, and then Minnesota.
Yeah, they've actually been playing decent hockey. I am highly encouraged by what we've seen despite the loss last night. I think that they were the better team on the ice, and sometimes that doesn't get you the results that you're looking for. All right, Alex, I know you can't look at anything, whether it's on Twitter, YouTube.
No, I can't cheat, I guess.
The text line. You can watch the YouTube chat. We have it up on the television screen in front of us, and that's all. That is the entirety of the information that Alex will have for the next 3 hours. So if you want Alex to see anything, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is the place to go and put your comments up there. It's the only way he's going to see any piece of information for the next 3 hours because he can't move.
DJ Patty Cakes, I do agree. Great defense by the Blues in the third period.
JR has put out the practice lines for today.
Guess the lines. T-Bone hit the open.
Your top line today. Alex, any guesses?
Booch, Thomas, Neighbors. God, please, big whammy, no whammy, no whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Stop.
No, you got one of the 3.
Thomas? Crap.
Think as if you were Drew Bannister, not as if you were Alex Ferrario.
Okay. Should be the same one. Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors.
2 out of 3.
Thomas, Neighbors, Sod.
2 out of the 3. Yeah, me and T-Bone are laughing for the same reason, and I don't think Alex knows why.
Thomas, Kyrou, Sod.
Yep. That's your top line. Your second line.
Booch, Shen, Neighbors.
Nope. 2 out of the 3.
Shen, Booch, Neighbors.
2 out of the 3.
Holloway, Booch, Neighbors.
2 out of the 3.
Bolduc, Booch, Neighbors.
There you go.
I don't like that.
Third line.
Holloway, Shen, Kapanen.
Nope. 2 out of 3.
Holloway, Shen, Texier.
2 out of 3.
Holloway, Shen. Who am I missing?
Come on, man. We like his game.
Oh, Joseph. Duh.
There you go.
Oh, that's the best line.
Now
I
you
like.
ready for the fourth line? I bet you only get this.
Oh, they broke up the WTF line. Toropchenko. Sorry. Toropchenko, Foxa, Texier.
Nope. 2 out of 3.
Toropchenko, Texier, Sundquist?
Nope. 1 out of 3.
Toropchenko,
Yep.
Foxa,
Yep.
Walker.
No. That would be the
Sundquist.
WTF. Nope.
Kapanen. What?
So here's your lines, because I know that was difficult to follow for some. Sod, Thomas, and Kyrou is your top line today.
Don't like it.
Bolduc, Booch, Neighbors is your second line. Holloway, Shin, Joseph is your third line. Why not put two centers on your third line?
Why not?
Sure.
Works.
Torpo, Foxa, and Kapanen is your fourth line, with Texier, Walker, and Sonny as your extras today. Defensively, Suter is skating with Parayko.
Okay, that makes sense.
Broberg with Falk. Joseph with Kessel. Perunovic is the extra. Leddy is not skating today after taking a puck off of the ankle, foot, whatever, last night. That could help to explain some of the issues that he had.
Let's not overreact here. Can I overreact on these lines?
Let's do that coming up next. Again, if you
I'm
want
not
to
going
see Alex
anywhere.
Ferrario, you can do so. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL is the place to go. He is going to be duct taped to his chair for the next 3 hours. He cannot move. He cannot speak with his hands, which is a difficult thing considering he and I are both fellow Italians.
Very true.
And there's a lot of speaking with our hands that takes place on this show. If you want to get involved via the text line today, Alex will not see any of it. 314-399-9646 is the place to do so. We're going to react to the lines as they are constructed today and talk a little bit about Nick Leddy next year on 101 ESPN.
Wild drop it back to Kaprizov. Slowed down by the stick of Parayko, but it comes down low. They shoot and score. Hartman scores the power play goal. The Wild take a 1-0 lead. Get it to Zuccarello, centers near wing, and the Minnesota Wild have scored. Nick Leddy, who had just blocked a shot, was wincing in pain, was trying to clear. The Wild kept it in. They forced a turnover, capitalize, and it's 3-0 Minnesota.
Well, I think we're talking about 4 games. I don't want to make too much about one mistake. Obviously, I'm sure he'd be the first to admit that he has to make a play there. He's going to be a better player for us. I believe he will be. It's a mistake. There's a lot of mistakes in that game. He's not just the only one that made mistakes.
He's not, but he's one of the only ones that made mistakes that directly led to a goal heading into the back of their net. That's what it sounded like last night right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Chris Kerber on the call. That voice you just heard, of course, is Drew Bannister, the St. Louis Blues head coach. Blues lose last night 4-1. Earlier today, just a little bit ago, the Blues did take the ice for morning skate. There was no Nick Leddy skating. It sounds as if he may be dealing with a little something coming off of last night's game, which could help to explain his lack of production in that game. Alex, let's start with Nick Leddy. I want to get to the lines here in just a moment because they did shake those up quite a lot for today's practice. If Nick Leddy was skating, do you think that they would have had him on that top pair today with Colton Parayko?
I don't. I think they would have put Suter up there with Parayko, and they would have put Leddy with Kessel. I know Bannister was trying to keep everybody calm with Leddy yesterday of saying, like, look, he's a veteran. He's going to figure this out. We got to have some patience with him. But also at the end of what he said, but we also realize that you can't keep making the same mistakes. And that's 4 games that players have snuck behind Nick Leddy and have gotten a net front presence or a scoring chance with it. So I think the way that they ended that game, now I know Broberg skated with Parayko for like 1 shift, but overall it was Suter and Parayko that took multiple shifts together in the 3rd period after that 3rd goal went in. I think it's going to be Suter, Parayko. I think it's going to be Broberg and Falk. And then my gut would say if Leddy's okay, it'll be Leddy and Kessel for that next game. And if not, probably P.O. Joseph and Kessel.
Yeah, I think they probably would have gone back to Leddy and Parayko. I mean, hearing Bannister talk and say, it's just been 4 games, I think they knew they had to try and break up that pairing last night just because it was one of those games where you could at least look at it and say, you know what? 1 game bad from Nick Leddy here tonight. He's really struggling. Let's just pull him off of that top pair because we really got to be in a shutdown role also while generating some offense, especially while we're losing.
Who was the defenseman a couple of years ago that was like a -6 in a game? Was it Tucker? And they had to sit him for like the entire 3rd period. I can't remember who it was specifically.
Yeah, it was probably Tucker.
I think that it was Tucker, and they were like, listen, we just got to sit him down.
I'd search it for you while you were talking, but...
Next game, he went right back in there, and they had him back into his usual spot. That's what it felt like last night for Leddy. It just wasn't his night. It wasn't going to work, and so they had to bump him down, and they ended up putting him on
but
that
that's
3rd
3
pair.
out of 4 games. Like, it happened in Vegas on the power play. It happened against San Jose on their odd man rush. Like, it's not just a one-off in 2 periods.
I'm totally with you. I have been saying for the last 2 years, I don't think Nick Leddy should be a top pair defenseman for this team. I'm trying to give the perspective of the Blues. I think Drew Bannister would have gone back to it. I would have been ready going into opening night, having Broberg next to Colton Parayko. They didn't feel that way, so whatever. It is what it is. Philosophical differences and whatnot.
I think it's Leddy and Parayko have been on the ice for 7 goals against at even strength. Leddy's been on the ice for 8 goals against so far this season. And I think there's only been 12 that's been scored against the Blues.
Nick Leddy has been on the ice for 8 of the 14 goals that the Blues have allowed so far this year at all strengths, including 2, I believe it was, last night.
Yeah, so 7 at even strength he's been on the ice for. He and Parayko.
Not been good.
That's not a shutdown pair. And some of this has been last season because I looked it up because I was curious. I mean, they played well last season, but Money Puck had them at the expected goals against for Parayko and Leddy at like 2.84 per game, and it was not in line with a lot of the top pairs defensively. So some of it was Jordan Binnington stealing some of those chances. So part of me wondered if we were just fooled at how good they played together last season. At some point, and this goes with Thomas as well, because Robert Thomas has been on the ice for a good chunk of goals against right now at all strengths. At some point, you have to adjust your shutdown pair. Because if Parayko and Leddy aren't your shutdown pair, it's very obvious they're getting offense from Falk and Broberg. Probably why they don't want to break them up. You have to find somebody else who can be a shutdown pairing mate with Colton Parayko if Nick Leddy's not that guy.
Yeah. I would like to see them put Broberg with Parayko because I think that's your future. I think those guys are going to be tied together for potentially the next 5 to 7 years. And if that's how you feel, I don't know if the Blues feel the way that I do or not, but I would just like to see it. Like, I certainly wouldn't go with Suter with Parayko. That just feels like a really big task.
I don't mind Suter, mostly because
I think Suter's been totally fine this year.
Yeah. What's tough is you don't want to give that 24, 25 minutes a night. But, I mean,
exactly.
The dude keeps himself in great shape, and he was playing like 20, 21 minutes with Dallas last season, too. So
yeah, so put him on the second pair with Justin Falk. And let's see what this is a perfect opportunity to find out how it's Broberg capable of.
I want to use my hands so bad right now in an argument, and I can't every time I move.
Come on, start swinging them around down there.
It's like one of those torture racks where you move part of your body, or maybe it's one of those kink stuff, but you move your body and it pulls a piece of it. Yeah. And it's not fun for me. But
some people like it.
Not right now, I don't. I'm not kink shaming anybody, but not right now. Yeah, not a good tug. Not a good tug. But you can't break up Broberg and Falk right now. And I understand what you're saying because, yeah, they are the future. And, yes, you do have two big bodies that could kill plays. But, man, when you've got a pair that has not been on the ice for a goal against yet this season in Broberg and Falk, and you've got a point per game in Philip Broberg, and you've got Justin Falk who's picking up points, I actually, before I would break them up and move a Broberg up, I'd give Falk and Broberg top pair minutes and see what they go against the top pairs.
Sure, I'm fine with that.
See what that looks like. And if that doesn't work, then you can start experimenting.
All right, so that's the defensive side of things. We do need to talk about the lines. Saad, Thomas, and Kyrou are together today at the morning rush. Bolduc, Booch, and Neighbors is your second line right now. Holloway, Shin, Joseph, and then the fourth line, they did break up the WTF line. Toropchenko, Foxa, and Kapanen is your fourth line today. I do want to get to that fourth line. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But how did you feel about the way that they constructed these, Alex? It certainly is not the way that I would have gone about it, but I understand sometimes there's no great answers. Is that the situation here, or is this a situation where they're kind of cutting their nose to spite their face to try to make this Booch at center thing work?
Yeah, they're trying to make this Booch at center thing work. I don't mind it because you're still deep from lines 1 through 3. The fourth one right now isn't really a threat for me anymore. I like Joseph, and it was Texier or Joseph Holloway and Shen. Is that the third line?
Yeah.
Joseph Holloway and Shen.
I like that one. I think that's got speed. It's got tenacity. It's got the ability to score. That's a really good third line to use. I don't like that second line because now you don't really have that threat. Now, I know Zach Bolduc set up a play yesterday for that goal that the Blues scored, but Bolduc doesn't have the same prowess as a Jordan Kyrou. And now you've got a centerman who's not really comfortable in that spot. You've got a net front presence who's going to be the threat offensively.
I'm not sure Neighbors or Bolduc see the game in the same way that Booch does.
They don't. And I just...
It just seems like now that we're here and you don't even have Kyrou on his line, I see no reason to have Buchnevich centering that line. None.
Well, and defensively, I'm not sure how good that line is. I see what they're doing with Thomas, Kyrou, and Saad. Because Thomas and Kyrou, yeah, it's a pair. But here's my worry with that and why I don't like those two together. You are now going back to playing that one-and-done hockey. You are now going back to playing off of the rush, getting in the zone with speed, taking a shot, and it coming back out. What I like about Neighbors with Thomas, and it hasn't worked because you don't have that shooting threat, Neighbors at least could try and keep plays alive for Thomas to find some space. You just didn't have the threat to shoot. You've gone through Holloway, you've done Bolduc, you've done Shen, you've done Saad for one game. I would have either...
You know what's really worked? Buchnevich up there. That's really looked
Somebody's
good so
been
far
trying to
season.
say that for some time now, but it has. Like
Thomas said on the morning show, you brought this up the other day. The number one guy he brought up when asked, who do you see the ice the same as right now? Like, who's the guy that you have the best chemistry with? And the first name that he came out of his mouth was Pavel Buchnevich.
Yep.
He said, and also Kyrou.
Yep.
He did bring up Jordan Kyrou. I want to make that very clear. This was not a diss at Kyrou by any stretch of the imagination. But when asked, who is the guy that the single player on the team that you have the most chemistry with, the first name and without hesitation was Pavel Buchnevich.
And I think everybody's go-to with Thomas and Kyrou is, oh, well, look, they look good together when they put them temporary in games. Booch is up there as well. I really think the chemistry is Thomas and Buchnevich, and then you can put that third player in. If you want to go Kyrou, great. You can't be a one-and-done line with your top line. Somebody has to have sustained zone time. And now,
also, I think that this is just putting more pressure once again on Jordan Kyrou because we talked about it. The matchups are so much better for him when he's on that second line as opposed to having to go up against the top matchup, both defensively and the top line every single night.
I mean, just look at that line combination down from top to bottom. I don't know if any of those lines scare you in terms of puck possession. You've got a line
I like that third line. Holloway, Shin, Joseph, I think is a pretty good line in that
you
regard.
go for mismatch, and that's one. But, man, if you're relying on your third line to create offense, because guess what? Your fourth line now being broken up, I know we get excited about fourth line, specifically me. A fourth line, I'm not too sure is as dangerous as it was prior, because I think Nathan Walker brings energy. I like Faksa. I like Toropchenko. I don't know if Kapanen brings the same energy as Walker. You don't scare other teams now, at least from me looking at these line combinations from top to bottom, like you would if Booch was not the center.
Give me 1 second. I do want to get to that fourth line, but before we get to that, I think at this point it is now becoming difficult for me to justify having Pavel Buchnevich at center. We have seen how good he has looked this year at wing, and how much he has, in my opinion, at least lacked offense when he's at center. It is past time to put him on the wing on that top line with Robert Thomas. It gets you the most out of Robert Thomas, who I don't think has looked 100% like himself so far this year. I don't think you're getting the most out of him because of what you're doing with this experiment with Buchnevich as a second-line center. I don't think you're getting the most out of Pavel Buchnevich because of what you're doing with him. That's $16 million that you're not getting the most out of either of them because you're not utilizing them together. I think it is time to change that. And then as the second-line center, I just don't understand their hesitation to put Braden Shin there. You're playing him at center.
And you're moving him to the top 6 in games.
He's been playing top line minutes on the wing, so you clearly see him as a top 6 forward. You see him as a center, but not a top 6 center. It's a really strange phenomenon that's taking place right now. And frankly, I think Holloway's looked fine, more than fine, as a center on that third line. You can have a line with like Holloway, Joseph, and Saad, for example, and that is a more than capable third line that you can go with. And then you've got Shin with like Kyrou and Bolduc as your second line, and then Thomas with Booch and Neighbors as your top line. Boom, let's go. Let's see what that looks like. On the fourth line, I don't understand what Nathan Walker once again has apparently done to lose his spot. It's baffling to me. Like 2 games ago, literally 2 games ago, this head coach just came out and said, this guy, every time he's in the lineup, he does something to keep himself in the lineup. And now 2 games later, you're pulling him for Kapanen. It's not the end of the world. It is a little confusing to me. And it is something that, in my opinion, is a little hard to justify coming off of what we have seen so far from this team, where for 3 out of the 4 games, that fourth line has been the reason why you end up coming back in them. I'm a little confused by that one. All of this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but the fourth line one, to me, when you're just pinpointing, hey, what is the one that makes the least amount of sense given what we've seen on the ice so far? Pulling Walker from the lineup, unless this is something that has to do with injury, which is possible.
Could be.
Maybe that's it. But if he's not dealing with anything, that one is pretty shocking.
It just doesn't make sense to break up a line that actually had chemistry, that knew what their role was when they were on the ice. And now you're breaking it up and putting somebody on it that doesn't have a fourth line mentality in Kapanen because you used him in a second and third line role. I feel like it's a little bit of overkill right now in terms of juggling these line combinations up, because somebody said, guys, it's only a practice. Yeah, but typically a practice line combination goes into the morning skate, which carries over into the game.
I was about to say, they play tomorrow.
Here's the problem with
And
this.
This is your
practice lines going into the game yesterday was what they did yesterday.
You've got a new face on every line, essentially. And every single game, it's lasted about a period before you've broken up those lines and you're starting to put guys with new faces. And we had Matthew Joseph on our pregame show yesterday, who has played for 2 separate teams. And Grant asked him, how long does it take to build chemistry with a new team? And he said, look, some places it's long, some places it's short. He said when he got to Ottawa, it took him an entire year to get comfortable with that. Now imagine trying to get comfortable when every single game you're going to probably be in a different position with a different player who's not comfortable in that position. Again, I know they're experimenting. I know they're trying to find something that's going to work, but it seems impossible to get chemistry with line combinations when as soon as one thing doesn't look right, they break it up and they switch it up again. So it's going to be interesting.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, a little bit of a late addition to the show. Al Avila is going to join us coming up next. Former Major League Baseball general manager. He's going to join us as Alex is tied to a chair next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here at the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues fall to the Minnesota Wild last night, but they'll be back in action tomorrow here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN as they take on the New York Islanders. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. This portion of our update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We got a late addition to the show. Alex Speier writes about the Red Sox for the Boston Globe. He recently had a really good piece, though, Alex, over in Baseball America, talking about the Boston Red Sox hitting development program and how they overhauled the entire thing this season. I found that interesting as we cover the St. Louis Cardinals here locally. Chaim Bloom is somebody that we have had a keen eye on because he's now going to be the next president of baseball operations. He was previously with the Red Sox. He oversaw their minor league development system. So I found it interesting that they had to overhaul the hitting approach this year after he leaves. Alex Speier joins us now via the 101 ESPN hotline. Alex, we appreciate the time, man. Can you give us a little bit of insight into why this was necessary and what did the Red Sox do to overhaul their hitting approach this year?
Yeah, first of all, I'm afraid that first of all, thanks for having me on. Secondly, I need to kind of correct the framing that you have,
Sure.
because this was not an overhaul that occurred after Chaim Bloom left. It, in fact, was an overhaul that started under Chaim Bloom in the prior, I would say, most drastically. It started after the 2022 season. The Red Sox had Chaim Bloom had overseen he was supposed to oversee a modernization of the Red Sox farm system that involved kind of a more data-based player development, and that occurred in somewhat piecemeal fashion, where the Red Sox, for the first few years of Chaim Bloom's tenure as chief baseball officer with the Red Sox, moved somewhat deliberately towards that. Right, they tried to find ways of blending coaches who had been with the organization for a long time. It had been very successful, helping to develop a number of star players who had contributed to championships. They tried to move gradually in the direction of places like Driveline, where development is data-based, meaning are you increasing your bat speed steadily over time or not? Are you hitting the ball harder steadily over time or not? Are your swing decisions objectively improving over time or not? And so, the Red Sox kind of turbocharged that process in the last full year that Chaim Bloom was there. I think that after a few years of being there and trying to kind of blend approaches, the team just kind of put the pedal down and said, we really need to lean hard into an overhaul that will be far more data-driven. And so they hired a bunch of people from Driveline in the offseason of 2022 to 2023. And that was when Bloom was still head of the baseball operations department. He had kind of empowered another VP with the team to oversee that project. But he was definitely very much committed to the idea that the Red Sox needed to be the best player development organization in baseball, and they weren't there. So during his tenure, they had that hard look, and they moved very much into the direction of rather than having kind of quote unquote traditional baseball people overseeing hitting development, they were going to have people who had non-traditional paths, i.e. Driveline, and who had worked as kind of consultants to baseball players, largely in the off season, helping to oversee how their hitters developed. And so this year represented a continuation of that, but there wasn't an overhaul. Even though Bloom was fired late in the 2023 season, the hitting program that was running very successfully for the Red Sox this year was one that had started under the leadership of Chaim Bloom.
So, Alex, how does this reflect on Chaim Bloom then? Because, of course, he steps in and he's making an impact on their minor league system, and Cardinals fans are now wondering what that's going to look like. Yeah,
well, I think that the Cardinals, like the Red Sox, have been a player development operation that's used kind of traditional teaching methods, and for decades that had led to incredible success while building a homegrown pipeline. I think that you are going to see a turn in the direction of kind of more objective, quote unquote, markers that are used. You're going to hear less discussion of kind of traditional statistics like ERA and batting average and on base percentage and slugging and homers, and a lot more based on expected statistics, based on the quality of contact that's being made, the expected outcomes, for our people is the shape of pitchers' arsenals geared towards getting a massive increase in swing and miss. And obviously the Cardinals have themselves had already started doing some very interesting things in terms of modernizing some of their player development strategies this year, some of which run counter to what the Red Sox have been doing. Like, I found it super interesting. Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch had a great article recently about how the Cardinals have been pushing their minor league pitchers to work deeper into games, which is something that the Red Sox have not been doing in recent years and had not done under Chaim Bloom. So exactly where it lands, I'm not sure, but I would expect a lot of people. I would expect the Cardinals to make a massive investment in technology for player development. So, like, they're going to be tracking every baseball that's thrown and every baseball that's hit, and that's not just in games. That's also like in batting cages and in side sessions and that sort of thing. And they're going to be kind of breaking down players in all likelihood in different ways and identifying different markers for whether or not they're developing in a way that's going to make them impactful big leaguers.
Alex Speier is joining us here on 101 ESPN for another couple of minutes, talking about how the Chaim Bloom era and beyond in Boston kind of changed their player development program. Alex, I'm curious. Much like here in St. Louis, Boston is a very traditional sports market. And when it comes to baseball, my guess is, I don't know this to be true, but I know what it's like here in St. Louis. When people hear things like expected batting average and expected slugging percentage and xWOBA, for example, I would imagine there is a bit of pushback and a little bit of resistance to that. How was the response early on to this kind of a change? And has that changed at all now that there is some success that's coming through the Red Sox system?
It is the initial reaction tends to be one of pushback. Yes, I think that we're used to watching the game as it's taking place on the field, and you're judging success based on the actual outcomes in games rather than the expected ones. And that's particularly true at the major league level. And I think that in the big leagues, the actual statistics, the actual things that happen matter more than the expected ones, at least in terms of figuring out, did you win or lose, right? That's the ultimate arbiter of whether or not you're having success. Figuring out whether or not you're betting on future success is probably driven by quote unquote expected stats more than those traditional ones. Yes, there was, but to answer your question, there was absolutely kind of resistance. I think that it's evolved a lot over time. I think that a lot more of the expected metrics have just bled into the day-to-day baseball conversation. Certainly, the degree to which like baseball games are watched, and it's like, oh, the exit velocity was blah. I think that is that's made its way into kind of more traditional broadcasts at this point, and just a wider audience in terms of like how we discuss the game. If it's not working, then it makes it a very easy straw person, right? Like it's low hanging fruit in terms of like you can dunk on the notion of expected statistics and things that you're not seeing if the actual success of a team isn't present. But I think that ultimately there has been skepticism. There was skepticism about. There tends to be skepticism about modernizing traditional player development strategies, but over time, if you have players developing successfully, then the skepticism falls by the wayside. And in the case of the Red Sox, they now have 4 of the top 25 or 30 prospects in baseball. They've seen some of their players take monumental steps forward in terms of in terms of how they've developed as hitters and power hitters, and seeing their strikeout rates drop. So a lot of objective markers to suggest that their player development has been on a good path for these last couple of years, and we'll see where it goes, because the ultimate assessment is going to be made when some of their very good young prospects reach the big leagues.
All right, Alex, we got to get out of here in just a moment, but I'm curious. I know this is a complicated question. Hopefully, a simple answer though. Do you think that Chaim Bloom will be successful here in St. Louis? I know he became a divisive figure for some in the Boston area with his tenure there.
The tricky part is, how is success defined in terms of ownership, right? Like, is there I think that if there's a commitment on the part of the Cardinals to say, okay, you're in charge of overseeing the replenishing of the farm system over a multi-year period, and ultimately to get the Cardinals to a place where they're competing year over year with good resources for the big league team and a good farm system. Yes, I think that as long as there's patience to get to that point, it might be 4 years to get to that satisfying point where the farm system and big league team are firing on all cylinders. 4 or 5 years, that's a reasonable timetable in Major League Baseball. He's capable of getting a team to that point, yes.
He's Alex Speier. Great work for the Boston Globe. Also a really good piece over in Baseball America discussing the Red Sox development system and how it has grown. Alex, appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much for hopping on with us today. We'll talk with you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You got it. That's Alex Speier joining us here on 101 ESPN. Great work over at the Boston Globe. Reached out to him earlier this week because I did read that piece and wanted to find out, okay, what does this mean for Chaim Bloom? What does it mean for the Red Sox? What does it mean, really, for the future of the St. Louis Cardinals? Just full disclosure. People on the text line said, where's Al Avila? Okay, so here's what happened.
That was him.
Here's what happened. I'm going to tell you next in questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friend and insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, taking care of you and your family with car and home insurance. And Tracy wants everyone to know in Missouri and Illinois, rates are going up because there are incidents that are taking place. And if you have previous accidents on your record, there are some insurances that will not accept you. That's not the case, though, with Tracy Bibb and her team over at Allstate. Always there for you, always willing to find competitive rates and make sure that she is saving you money, which I think is so important, knowing that you're covered and that you're saving money in the process. Plus, Tracy's always available for you. The customer service is incredible. You have her personal number, so if there's issues, you contact her, and she's able to help you right away. Give Tracy a call today. Tell her you heard Alex Ferrario talk about it on 101 ESPN, and she will take care of you the rest of the way. She'll even cancel your previous insurance that you were with. 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the bib.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We'll get to some of your questions here in just a moment. You guys may be wondering, so why did you say that Al Avila was going to be on the show and then Alex Speier ended up popping up on the show?
Yeah,
Okay,
Brandon.
let me explain
Why
myself.
did
I thought
that
it was the
happen?
same
It's
guy.
100% on me.
You didn't let me ask him about why he didn't want to trade Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah, so we have reached out to Al Avila. We're planning to get him on the show. He's planning to do so. He's had some family stuff come up, but he's going to come on the show. It's just a matter of when we are able to make the time work for us. So I'd reached out to both Al Avila and Alex Speier earlier this week. Fortunately for me, because I'm a big old dummy, I, in my text to Alex Speier, I copied over the text from Al Avila because I'm lazy, and I changed some of it, but I forgot to change the name. So I put Al. Hey, Al.
I just failed.
Thank God his name is Alex.
What a lazy individual.
And so when I texted him back, I was responding as if it was Al Avila. So I thought it was Al Avila who, during our show, said, "Are you guys calling?" He had not responded to me about coming on Wednesday at 11:35, which is what I had sent back. So long story short, I'm a dummy. It's my fault. I apologize. That's why I confused the two. Thanks to Alex Speier for coming on the show today. Appreciate him. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers.
If only we didn't lose a regular guest that we love to have on because you identified the person via text.
Okay, well, we
and
texted
insulted
Jim
his
Duquette
milk
and
farm.
Buster only, and I called
BK
Buster.
clearly
Jim.
cannot handle booking multiple
Now we'll
guests
never
at
have
once.
Yeah.
Buster
Never.
on again.
Yeah. You insulted his milk farm.
I've never done that. I've booked the wrong Ryan Braun, but I've never texted the wrong name to the wrong person.
I don't think I've ever
let's
booked
get to
the wrong
some of these
person.
texts. We can stop roasting BK now. It's deserved.
Oh, yeah. Let's stop roasting BK.
enough.
Is this what you do with your dolls at home? Do you just put different items on them throughout the day?
You want me to answer that question?
Yeah. I do.
You would, as you're tied to a chair. All right, from the 314. Hey, boys, is Jerry Jones more hated across America than Stan Kroenke simply because Jerry is more popular, more famous? Yeah, probably. People know him more, and he's the owner of the Cowboys, which is the number one
more
football
outspoken.
brand.
I mean, I don't hear
for sure.
Kroenke talk at all. Jerry Jones is doing press conferences after every loss that the Dallas Cowboys have. Yeah, I would say he's probably... Is he one of the most hated owners in sports?
Knicks owner's
The
pretty
Knicks
hated,
owner's
man.
got to be up there.
The Oakland A's owner pretty hated right now.
Different type of hatred, though.
Yeah, like cheap versus hated, I guess you could say.
I think Jones might be the biggest villain
I think the
as an
thing
owner.
about being an owner when you're as outspoken as Jerry is you better be successful.
Yeah.
If you're going to be an owner that is outspoken and you're successful, like if it works for Steve Cohen with the Mets, he'll be beloved.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be super like Mark Cuban, when Mark Cuban was having all of his success with the Mavericks, people were like, man, this is the model owner in sports. He loves the team as much as I do. He lives and dies with them. He's sitting courtside, all these. It's the modern owner. And then they went through some failures, and there was some really terrible stuff that happened like inside of their front office. And now he's not as beloved any longer. So, yeah, there's a couple of different ways to look at that. All right, from the 314, guys, when I saw last night that the Cleveland Guardians were walking Juan Soto to get to Aaron Judge, I lost my mind. What did you think of the decision? Did you guys see this last night? Were you watching the game at all?
I caught the back half of it. I didn't notice.
I had it up next to me, but I wasn't watching. Obviously, the Blues are going on.
So, big spot early in the game. They've got 2 on, and there's a base open at first base. So, it's second and third. And you've got Aaron Judge Juan Soto coming to the plate. They end up intentionally walking him to get to Aaron Judge because they want to end the inning right there. And they view Judge as their better way to get out of the inning. What does that say?
Well,
Lefty-righty, so you've got the matchups that they're playing against right there. But,
I mean, it says that you built that team properly to have that 1-2 punch that you have to walk one to get to, not a better option. But, I mean, let's all be honest. Juan Soto probably would have forced a walk anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
His batter's eye, he would have sat up there. He's either hitting a bomb off of you or he's going to force a walk. It's not like Juan Soto's going to walk up there and strike out or ground out. So either way, you were going to lose.
I thought it was the correct decision.
Yeah.
Because there's one out. You could potentially set up the double play there. Juan Soto's not a fast runner. Also, Juan Soto's a better hitter right now than Aaron Judge. Like this year, that wasn't the case. But right now, especially with the potential matchups there, righty-righty, I would have rather I would have rather thrown to Judge than Soto.
Yeah,
in that spot. I thought it was the right call.
I think that tells you more of not so much of like, oh my gosh, what does Stephen Vogt do? No, it tells you that Stephen Vogt doesn't fear Aaron Judge right now. Like you look at Aaron Judge, he hasn't been the same guy he was in the regular season. Clearly, teams have found a hole and found a way to kind of take advantage of Aaron Judge, if you will, once you get to October. So it's probably the right call. Now, granted, he had a 2-run bomb later on in the game to dead center. So, like, that was always in the possible outcomes.
It did kind of work, though.
But
hit a sac fly there.
Yeah, take on the worst hitter at the time and Aaron Judge in that spot. It makes a ton of sense.
It also means, like, if you had pitched to Soto and he gets a hit, now you also have to pitch to Judge. In that spot, they didn't pitch to Soto, so you pitched to Judge, and then you pitched to Wells. And if you're telling me, hey, you got to pitch to 2 guys, who do you want? I'm going Judge and Wells over Judge and Soto.
Yeah.
I thought it was it is a ballsy move there. I kind of liked it. I don't think there's a whole lot of managers in Major League Baseball that would have been willing to do that. I thought it was the correct call, and I respect the gumption in that moment. He then also brought in a different pitcher to pitch to Judge, so I thought it was the right call. I liked the way that he managed there. You also now have BB for potentially Game 5. You can pitch him on short rest. I thought it was the right call. All right, from the 314. Guys, as of today, if you had a do-over, do you think that the St. Louis Blues will make the postseason?
Yes. It's 4 games.
I would say no, but I think that they're going to be more interesting and more fun to watch than I expected them to be coming into the season.
I don't know if you guys have looked around the Western Conference. Not a lot of juggernauts floating around right now.
Weirdish happens early on, like Edmonton. Are we really going to buy that Edmonton stinks?
I could say weirdish happens early on for the Blues, too.
Sure, but isn't, like, the 5-on-5... Like, if looking at the Blues, I mean, we asked the question. So, first off, my answer is no, I don't want to do over. I still don't think they're a playoff team. I mean, we just talked about the line combinations, and we were talking about their top 6. The reason you're not going to ever probably be happy with the top 6 this year in their line combinations or their lines is there's too many holes. They don't have a top-line winger. They don't have a second-line center. Defensively, they're missing a top 4 defenseman. It's why it's hard to, like, okay, well, what do you do with Parayko's partner if you move Leddy down? Okay, well, if you do move up Broberg, then who's Falk's partner? So there's just too many holes for this team. They still are going to struggle 5-on-5 offensively. I don't want to do over. I still think they missed the playoffs.
This would be an easily fix if you would just take one guy and move him up to the top wing and move another guy to the second-line center.
A little bit of news passed along. This comes from awful announcing. FanDuel is set to take over as the Diamond RSN branding. Bally Sports will no longer be the naming rights deal any longer. FanDuel will be the exclusive naming of the RSN that previously was called Bally Sports. Before that, Fox Sports. Now it will be FanDuel.
So is it FanDuel Midwest?
I guess. Sounds like that's
going to be a tongue twister.
They officially filed that yesterday. In their,
they had to. Tom kind of broke the news on our show.
That's going to be like for the hosts there, it's like when I used to do Cardinals and Blues at KMOX, they would overlap, and so I would do a Blues game on a Saturday and a Cardinals game on a Sunday. So every Cardinals pregame it would be, welcome back to the Blues pregame show. Son of a.
So
What's going to happen? Welcome to FanDuel Midwest.
It looks like there will be like a 5% interest or 5% stake in equity from FanDuel over the previously Bally Sports. So they will have a little bit of equity in this, and you'll get like FanDuel TV. So there's some podcasts that they put on there. I think Kay Adams has a show that's on there. So if you're interested,
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, let's just be honest. FanDuel's just a walking bank with the money that they bring in with their sports book.
Bet with Circa. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next.
Nose itches.
How much of the line combination churn is too much churn? We might be finding out right now for the St. Louis Blues. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and it is time for you to unlock your inner champion. You can do so today with Victory Men's Health. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can check them out right now at victorymenshealth.com. Do you wake up in the morning and have the same amount of energy, the same amount of excitement for the day that you once did? If the answer is no to either of those 2 questions, you may have low testosterone. If you're not getting the same out of your workouts, that's another potential symptom. They could check that for you over at Victory Men's Health. They did that for me. Turns out I'm in the range. However, when they did my micronutrient lab, found out I was severely low on some vitamins, so I have some serious deficiencies in that regard. They got me all set up with a bunch of different stuff that I can take to make sure that I get the best version of myself. You can get the same thing. Unlock your inner champion today by going to victorymenshealth.com, whether it's weight loss goals that you'd like help with, low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, maybe you want to learn a little bit more about their red light therapy programs. All of that is available to you at victorymenshealth.com. So book online today, victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
Blues are able to get it back. Joseph comes off the wall. Score! Matthew Joseph walked into the circle. He had room. He snaps it in. It's 3-1.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, that was the one real highlight that the Blues had last night as they lose 4-1 in that game against the Minnesota Wild in the home opener for the 2024 season. Alex, if you had to guess right now, what do you think is the most utilized line combination for the Blues at 5-on-5 this year? You guys know the answer to this question.
Like the one that's played
most minutes together, 3 guys that are on the ice together at the same time. What is the most used line forward combination for the Blues so far this year?
Schenn, Booch, Kyrou.
Nope.
Oh, my guess is Booch, Kyrou, Bolduc.
Nope. The second most
Is it the
utilized
Is it the WTF line?
line for the Blues is Kyrou, Booch, and Bolduc. That is the second most utilized line for the Blues this year. They've played 24 minutes together at 5-on-5.
Thomas, Schenn, Neighbors.
Nope. I'll give you one more guess.
I'm going the WCF one, like you said.
It is.
Yeah.
They've played 33 minutes of
Should've guessed that
5-on-5
first.
time so far this year, and it's because they don't get split up.
Well.
When they're on the ice, they're always out there together until today. In which case now it is Kapanen that is on that line with Faksa and Toropchenko. Walker, for whatever reason, has once again been demoted. I have not seen any comments there yet. We'll see if maybe there's something health-related. I don't know. Alex, I think that there is a point in time where the juggling of the lines becomes too much, where you're 4 games into the year, and we've already seen dozens of combinations that the Blues have been able to utilize. I think some of it is good. I like what Bannister is doing where, hey, coming off of a PK, you're not utilizing Thomas and Booch on that anymore because now you can throw out them out there coming off of the PK to get them a real opportunity for an offensive moment there. Cool. That's a really smart move. It's a creative use of your top players. I like it. There are times where they're like platooning guys, whether it's defensively or offensively. They're making sure they get the best offensive players, the offensive zone start time. There are some really smart things that Bannister is doing with his line combinations. And then there's this, the churn. What do you make of it? The way that they've gone about this, Alex, where they seemingly are in a never-ending cycle of we've got to find the right combinations and we're not going to stop until we do.
I don't think it's good for the chemistry that you're trying to build in the early portion of the season because when you're juggling guys around nonstop, you're putting guys in position that they may not be comfortable with to try and see if it meshes. You've already got a guy at the centerman spot, and look, Buchnevich is willing to do it, but you've got a guy who's more comfortable at the wing and has had more success at the wing. You're moving a Braden Schenn from a centerman spot to a winger spot, who's more comfortable as a centerman. You're moving Dylan Holloway, who can play center, but he's more comfortable as the wing, at least in the early portion of his career. You're putting him at the centerman spot. You're moving guys around into spots where they're not comfortable with, where the sole purpose of the centerman is to drive offense. So it's set it and forget it. And I know they're somewhat doing that with Booch, but in all reality, they're not, because you're breaking them up in the middle of a game to put them with Thomas and Kyrou. You're playing them with Braden Schenn on a wing, and you're moving one to the other side. There's no consistency with it. And then to add on to that and pour gasoline onto the fire, you've got guys who are unfamiliar with this system that are now playing with different guys, not just on a nightly basis, but on like a every period basis. So I'm not sure how you're supposed to build up line chemistry and really get that 5-on-5 offense driving when guys aren't really sure what their roles are. Joey says it all the time on the broadcast with me. Players just want to know what their role is. What do you want from me? Do you want me to be a net front presence? Do you want me to forecheck? Do you want me to be the guy who goes in and retrieves the puck? Do you want me to be the guy back so I can play defense? And it just feels like when you're moving guys around to different roles and different lines every single game, guys don't know what you want from them, which turns into, well, we'll just try and skate the puck in and see if we can generate some type of offense.
I've never played hockey. I can barely skate, much less play
I'm
hockey.
shocked you can barely skate.
I'm okay. I can go forward. You want me to go backwards? Oh, we're going to have some problems. Yeah.
I can go backwards, but somebody has to push me.
There you go. Yeah. I can stand there while somebody else
Then I could get the feet going.
I have no ability to play hockey. That being said, I played football at a very low level and not particularly well. I was a tight end, and so for our offense, for our offense, a lot of it was running. You need to have chemistry with the tackle that's next to you as a tight end. Or if you're playing basketball, right? It's probably the most similar sport in a lot of ways, or soccer, to what you have on the hockey in a hockey rink. I played a lot of basketball growing up. You develop chemistry over time with the guys that you're playing with, where it's almost a second nature. You don't even have to know what's coming. Like, it doesn't have to be a set play. You can just see how they're going to react to whatever it is that the defense is giving you. And because you've played with them so often, you have the ability to then react in real time. When you don't have any chemistry as a line, you don't have the ability to do that. And my biggest frustration is not even how they're breaking these lines up after the games. It's in-game, dude.
Yeah.
We get like 6 minutes in, and it's like, oh, here comes a new line combination. Oh, that didn't work here. Well, here's another one. At some point, I do think it is important, because these guys didn't really work together during...
They played one preseason game together, and it wasn't even the lines that you're seeing right now.
At some point, I do think you have to say, okay, these are our best combinations that we have available to us right now. Let's go with it and see what works. And if it doesn't work in 4 games, we'll change it up again. But let's give this a little bit of runway here and see if we think this is the best combination that we have given the talent that we have available to us. Let's find out if that's right. And then we can kind of piecemeal things together beyond that. But right now, they're not allowing anything to breathe.
And this is not a good time to be doing this. I mean,
it's pretty rare that you hear at the radio people are saying, hey, a little too reactionary there.
Well, that's true. But if you're not going to have the preseason games to work on this, man, you can lose a playoff spot in the first couple of months of the season if you dig yourself in too much of a hole. Now, the tough part with all of this is they are generating offense. But that's why I think it's so frustrating when they break it up after a first period where they don't score. It's like you're generating offense. Yes, you didn't get one in the back of the net, and you need to score because you're finding yourself down, and you got to get on the board before you find yourself down by 2 or 3 goals. But if you're generating offense, and even if you don't score, you try and build off of that. You try and build off of the chemistry. So again, I know coaches, Berube used to do this, where he would break up lines in games. But it wasn't as much as where you're seeing every single line have 2 new faces on it. Last night at the end of the first period, before the start of the second, every line had 2 new wingers on it.
That's what I was about to say. The thing that's different that I remember under Berube is he would like flip guys.
He would do one player with another
one guy up,
he would go like a
guy
period and a half and say, okay, now it's not working.
And
now
it would be one shift, too, where he would be like, hey, I see a mismatch out here. I'm going to take this player and plop him up there with Robert Thomas.
It would also be after a few games. Like, hey, these guys have been playing together. We need a spark in this specific game. Let's go ahead and flip these guys. You know, one guy's going up to the top, another guy's going to the third line. You'd see that occasionally. And you'd see him juggle the lines when they really clearly needed it. Every single game so far this year, the Blues have had to juggle the lines. Now, some of that is they're playing from behind. They're getting behind in every game, and so they're chasing. They're always chasing the game. They're never just allowing their game to breathe. And I think that has flown up to the coach where he is now chasing as well, where he's like, okay, well, we got to find offense. We got to find offense. We got to find offense. They start out with one thing, and then the game gets away from them. They go to something different. Sometimes that's worked. A lot of times it hasn't. I do think it's probably time now to let something breathe. Even if I hate these line combinations, and I don't particularly love them, let's see what this looks like in the next game. Just give it a game to find out if this is something that can work. And if it doesn't, change it for the next one. But give them 60 minutes at a minimum to just go out there and play.
I don't mind the line juggling when you're down, because, like, if there are times where you're down and you're not playing good hockey, I get the idea of going to the juggling of lines. I don't even care if it has been just a 24-hour line combination. You've got to figure a way to try and juggle up and get more offense generated. The part that's confusing is, like, we've talked about it. In 2 of these games were like the Sharks game. They played really well. There were a couple of bad bounces that went their way, didn't go their way, and it led to Sharks goals. Same with last night. We all 3 in this room agree. They played pretty well. They were generating offense. They were playing great defensively in that first period. Yeah, they were down 1-0 because Leddy's controller got unplugged. Yep. And all of a sudden it was, okay, well, we have to juggle up the lines. That's the one where it sits wrong with me, because you're playing good hockey, so why do you suddenly need to start juggling things up? That's where it bothers me. If you're not playing good in a game for a period and a half, I can get, and I am understanding of the juggling of lines. It's weird when you're playing good hockey and you're still going through this juggling process.
The thing about it is you don't have to be doing all of this juggling. And I know I sound like a broken record, but juggle the lines once and try something so you can take one player off of the center position and see if that works. Because now you're not having to move 3 lines around. If you just switch one guy, you're switching one line. You're switching Shen with his line, and you're moving him to the second line, and you're putting a centerman in that third line spot. You're switching one player on those lines. Rather than
all
now...
of this comes back to Booch.
It does.
Every single conversation we're having so far this year comes back to, do we really need to be doing this with Booch at center?
And at some point, it's very obvious that you're continuing to force this square peg into a round hole of, no, we need him to be a centerman. No, we need him to be a centerman. But at some point, that 600 winning percentage that you're going off of last year, if you put yourself in a 4 or 5 game losing skid and you're 2-5, 2-6, can you really sit there and say, well, Booch gives us our best chance to win when you're losing hockey games?
I also don't want to hear that statistic this year when they're bumping him off of the center position almost every single game.
And moving him to a top wing because you can say, well, if we have him with Thomas, that gives us our best chance to score goals.
Leave him at center and let's see what that looks like. Like, if you really believe that he gives you the best chance to win by playing him at center, then just play him at center.
And I've gotten...
I just don't believe that they think that. I think that they're doing this out of what they believe is necessity. They think that they don't have another second-line center on their roster.
Which they do, Braden Shen, but I understand what they believe on this. And I've gotten pushback because I've seen some people text in on some post-game shows when I'm talking about this and saying, Alex, he's got 3 goals already. What are you concerned about? I mean, if you look at those 3 goals... 2 of them have been odd man rushes with him and Jordan Kyrou. The other has been on the power play where he's been the bumper. There really hasn't been a goal by Buchnevich that you look at and you're like, wow, he created that offense himself as the centerman. Even the Kyrou goals that we've seen, power play where he's speeding up the offense is not in a breakaway. You haven't really seen the centerman generating the offense, and you've got very little puck possession right now. You go into the zone and it's maybe 30 seconds before it's back out again. 30 seconds is probably actually giving them too much. They're going in, they're trying to get a couple of shots, and then it's coming right back out, and you can't keep going with that.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Oh my bleeping God. 2 days ago, the term you guys said in regards to Drew Bannister was quote-unquote genius. I did say that. I was the one that said that. And I said it was in reference to how he was using Booch, Thomas, and Kyrou coming off of the PK. I think it's really smart what he's doing there. I think Bannister is doing some really good stuff. What I don't like is the juggling of the lines. What I don't like is the commitment to Pavel Buchnevich at center. What I don't like is how Braden Shin cannot play center on the second line, can play center on the third line, can play wing on the top line, cannot play center on the second line. That's what I do not like. So my criticisms are very specific in nature. I don't think Bannister overall has done necessarily a bad job so far this year. Also, we're 4 games in. I think that the one area that is, in my opinion, fair to criticize is the way that the line combinations have been juggled almost every game so far this year.
Well, let's also remember what Bannister did well last season. Like, we talked a lot and prided him a lot about his accountability on the players. And, like, that hasn't gone away. Like, Drew Bannister still has that accountability factor, but this was the part that wasn't unknown. We saw it last year a little bit, but it was at the end when the Blues were making a push. This was the unknown in terms of managing a game from game to game on an NHL roster. It's also why they brought in a Claude Julien to help him in that instance of, hey, this is a veteran who's done this before. That's the other thing. I mean, we're talking a lot about Bannister doing this. How much say is a guy like Claude Julien playing into this as well? That's saying, like, hey, maybe we should try and juggle this up. You really just don't know right now, but what I do know is offensively you have not been the team that I thought you were going to be, and I don't think that's because of a lack of skill by the players. They're creating the opportunities. It's just hard to continue to try and finish when you've got different lines every single game.
So a little bit of news to pass along. This comes from Jeremy Rutherford, an update from Blues practice today. Leddy is day-to-day. Bannister said it was something that was bothering him yesterday during the day. He was fine to play last night, popped up again today. So it's a lower body issue that he's dealing with. I asked Alex earlier today, interesting that this is coming out now. I asked Alex earlier today, does he look slower to you? Because he looked like he was just moving slower last night. Sometimes when you see stuff like that, it's related to some kind of an injury that they're not putting out there in the public. I do wonder if there's something going on there. I don't know if it's like anything serious. It could be as simple as a sprained ankle, right? You just move a little differently when you have something like that. But lower body injury, questionable for tomorrow. That's the latest from Blues practice with regards to Nick Leddy. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. In about 15 minutes or so, we've talked a lot about Ryan Helsley, the Cardinals' offseason decisions. There's one player in the last decade or so that really compares to Ryan Helsley that was traded during the offseason heading into his final year of arbitration. We'll tell you who that is and what it could mean for a Ryan Helsley trade in 15 minutes. NFL Quick Hitters is next here on 101 ESPN. All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex is serving his punishment today for those of you that aren't aware.
It's like a triple punishment. I'm taped. I'm like waxing my arms right now, and I'm like being tortured with different things being put on my head and my face.
So if you want to see that, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is where you can go to find it. The graveyard chat has been off and running today. People are in a good mood. It seems like we get to the midweek. People are in a better mood today. Yesterday, people were a little testy over there.
Hey, DJ Patty Cakes, give my face off your profile pic.
I like it. DJ
Unbelievable.
Your hair is doing some wild things.
Well, that's why today was a hat day. But apparently not anymore. Oh, I just saw this. Yeah, well, you got my headphones like a little visor. Like Eli Drinkwitz over here. Also, there's this like piece of hair on the glasses that keeps blowing and touching my nose.
I hope he sneezes.
Oh, man. This is awful.
We should get a feather. Just for the rest of the show, I just have my reach out.
I will Incredible Hulk this tape at some point.
All right, let's get into some NFL quick hitters. Did you guys see the story with Tom Brady yesterday?
Yeah, he's the most hated owner now in pro sports.
He's been approved as a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. I believe it's like 5% is what he's a part of it. Here's the thing. Tom Brady also has a $375 million contract with Fox to be one of their broadcasters, their top broadcast.
Don't put him on
partner.
Raiders games.
Here's some of the restrictions that Brady will now have to abide by as a broadcaster.
Ah, got it.
He's not permitted to be in another team's facility. He's not permitted to see any practices. He's not permitted to attend a broadcast production meeting, either in person or virtually. He's prohibited from publicly criticizing game officials and other clubs. He's subject to the NFL's gambling policy. That one, whatever. And he's subject to the NFL's anti-tampering policy. Again, whatever.
Yeah, but you didn't read all of the guidelines on that one. There's one more. Unless you're Tom Brady.
Dude, this is, if he actually has to abide by all of these things, I don't know how he can possibly do this job. Like, Tom, if anybody can make it work, it's Tom Brady. He knows football as well as anybody. The biggest thing about being a broadcaster for these games, and T-Bone, you do play-by-play. Alex, you do play-by-play. You know how this works. These guys are going into these production meetings, and that's where they get the vast majority of their information. When they're in there, it's typically the color analyst, so Tom Brady, who would be leading the discussion with players and coaches. They'll talk to typically like 3 players from the team. So like if you're going up Bills versus Chiefs, right? That kind of a game. You would talk to like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Von Miller when he gets back from suspension, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, and then you'd get the 2 head coaches. Sometimes they'll give you an assistant coach as well. And you find out what the game plan is, kind of how they're going to be attacking, and typically they'll be very honest with you, especially when you have somebody like Tom Brady in the room, and they know this guy understands football. I can get kind of nerdy with it and granular, and he's going to be able to use this for the broadcast. And there's an embargo on all the information. You can't say any of this publicly. And if you break that trust, they're never going to give you anything again. Brady can't get any of that stuff now, dude. And the biggest thing to me is you can't criticize the officials or other clubs. So you can't be critical of a single team while you're doing these broadcasts. You can't do the job. You are now disqualified from doing an announcer's job. If I'm Greg Olsen, I'm furious after seeing something like this. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on it. Alex, what did you think as you saw this yesterday?
I mean, I'm kind of in the same line of thinking as you. The only difference is it's Tom freaking Brady. Like, if this was somebody
100%.
else, I think it would be made more of a deal. But Tom Brady has the ends on pretty much everything. He's got relationships with everyone. Now I understand. Now you're a broadcaster. Now you're a part owner. And so all of those things are in the murky middle. But then you can always go back to, yeah, but I'm friends with this guy. And this guy texted me this, or I'm talking with him about this. I don't know how they do this because contractually it's already there with Fox, but it's Tom Brady. And so it feels like it's just one of those loopholes that it's going to frustrate. And you're right. If I'm Greg Olsen, I'm livid because like that was my job and it was taken away by this guy. And now he's breaking all of the rules while I'm doing everything correctly. But again, it sucks, but you're going up against the greatest player in this generation for football. And you really can't complain about it too much because it's Tom Brady.
And you can as a viewer.
I
think as a viewer, you can wonder how much information am I missing out on because you're not doing your job properly. Especially, and honestly, if I'm Fox,
Maybe,
I'd
but
be furious if I'm Fox.
maybe, but wouldn't I be listening for Tom Brady's breakdown of the game?
Yeah, and part of that is knowing, understanding what the game plan is, and then being able to discuss whether or not they're executing on that game plan.
Now he's got to guess.
Yeah, you're guessing at everything.
Like,
And you can watch film, but sometimes, like, hell, his old team, right? The Patriots, they would mold their game plan to whoever they're going up against.
Yeah.
So it would be something different every week, and you would have no expectation or understanding of what they're going to be doing going in. It's like you're playing catch-up for the first 2.5 quarters of a game to really understand, okay, this is what they're trying to do, because there's so few plays in football until you get midway through the game. Yeah, I think this is almost disqualifying. You're right. Tom Brady is the one guy who could potentially get away with it. Like, I don't think Tony Romo could do this. I don't think Tony Romo could do this. Brady might be able to. But I do think as a viewer, you deserve to know going in, this is going to be some of the things that he's having to handle, having to deal with. It's a big deal, man. This is a really big deal. And if I'm Fox, I want to see what it looks like the rest of the year. I don't know what their contract looks like. If there's an out, I would probably want to get out of this thing after this season, given what he's going to have to do. I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I don't think, like, Fox brings him in to be the number one, and hopefully you got him, like, he's got like a 10+ year deal. Like, he's not going to be their best broadcaster. He's not going to develop into the best broadcaster in football if he doesn't get a chance to talk with those coaches, because you're right. That's the most important conversation that goes into prep work. You know, you can look at all the numbers. You can go back. In his case, he can look at film. But it all just comes down to the conversations, because you're right. It changes week over week over week. So he's not going to be the best broadcaster now that Fox was hoping for. And he's on the freaking Super Bowl this year. Like, it's a big deal. If I'm Fox, I am furious that he took that 5% stake. And I don't know if they'll be able to get out of that contract or not, but I'm with you. If they get an opportunity, they should.
Somebody said, guys, Fox has 15 other people that can get this info and just give it to Tom. This is not an issue at all. We'll see. We'll see. It is an issue. We'll see what he's able to get.
Be like, now I got to go from this Zoom to this Zoom with Tom to pass along my notes.
And Tom is the one that typically, again, the important part of this, the color analyst a lot of the time will be leading those discussions, because, like, Tom Burkhart, really good broadcaster, excellent broadcaster. I would say this for the three of us in this room as well. Like, Kerry Davis knows more about football, has forgotten more about football than we will ever know. He's been in those meeting rooms. He's been a part of a championship caliber roster. Now imagine Tom Brady leading those discussions. You're never going to get people to open up more in a room than you would if Tom Brady is sitting beside you and he's the one that's asking the questions. Tom Brady asking questions to Peyton Manning goes over a lot different than any of us in this room, or Burkhart, or any of them, Kevin Burkhart, whoever. That's what changes things here. You're going to get different information because he's asking the questions, and now he can't ask the questions. All right. I do want to get to one other thing. There's a big story in the NFL yesterday. Speaking of asking questions to somebody in power.
Oh, here we go.
Jerry Jones is not happy that people are questioning the job that he has done, not as the owner, but as the general manager this year.
This is not your job. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask
why.
why.
A job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Jerry, we're trying to figure out why the team is.
I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. You're not going to figure out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you, you need to come to this meeting I'm going to today. There are 32 teams here. You're geniuses.
That was about 45 seconds of what was about 3 minutes of cringeworthy radio. Ooh. Jerry Jones continuously went on and on and on about how these guys, he was going to replace them. He was going to get different people to ask these questions. They didn't deserve to question his track record as the general manager or owner of the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry, that is their job. Jerry went on to then double down later on this.
Was that a regular hit that he does?
He does it every single week.
Wow.
It's the flagship station, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas is where that audio comes from. It's their morning show. They do a weekly interview with Jerry Jones throughout the football season. And he then talks to Diana Rossini of The Athletic and doubled down on it, where he said, hey, listen, I pay these guys. He doesn't. They work for the radio station, not for him. We're not paid by the Blues in this room. We're paid by Hubbard Radio and 101 ESPN as a byproduct. But that's not how the relationship works. The radio station pays the Cowboys to be the affiliate.
Yeah.
This was wild to me, dude. And it speaks to the mindset that Jerry Jones has of not being able to be questioned. This guy's a billionaire. He's had a ton of success in his business world. his success as the Cowboys owner or general manager is absolutely up to scrutiny.
Yeah.
And it is deserving of criticism with the way that that team has come together this year, especially with the way that they did not spend early in the offseason and hampered themselves because of how long it took them to get the Dak Prescott deal and the CeeDee Lamb deal done. Had they gotten all this done earlier, they could have spent more in free agency. It opens up cap space. Yeah, Jerry, you deserve to be criticized, man.
They have no running game, but yet they didn't want to spend money on Derrick Henry because he was too expensive. And those were Jerry Jones's words. If anything, and look, I think everybody already knew who Jerry Jones was, but if anything, it painted the picture even more for fans. I mean, that's a power-hungry man right there. Like, he believes he controls everything in Dallas, and he basically just yelled at 2 radio hosts that, I'm going to get you guys fired so somebody else comes and asks me the questions that I want to be asked. It's like that's Jerry Jones for you, and that's where every single fan is frustrated with the team, and it's why I believe he's so hated. Problem is, you're stuck with it because that's the man. He does it.
Unwillingness to be questioned is also what leads to where they've been over the last few years.
Yeah.
Like he wants it his way or the highway, and when you do it that way, there's going to be a lot of people that are unwilling to work with you. So you can't hire the best and the brightest. You can't go out there and get the best coach that's possibly available because some of those coaches will see the situation and say, I don't want to work with that. I don't want to go there and then have Jerry Jones doing a press conference outside of my locker room 5 seconds after the final whistle. I don't want that. I want to be the one that is able to make those comments for my team and set the culture the way that I want it to be set. That's never going to happen. It is Jerry's team. He owns it. It's his right because he is the owner. But this is going to be something that ultimately prevents them from reaching what his goals. He stated he wants to win a championship. It's hard to reach that championship when you are this way.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I don't think Belichick would ever go there. Like, it's going to be arguably the best head coach available. Same with, I wouldn't doubt if Vrabel wouldn't go there. 2 great head coaches.
Ben Johnson, I wouldn't go there either.
Why would I want to go there? If you're right, he's going to be sitting outside the locker room. That's why he kept Jason Garrett around so long, because he knew Jason Garrett wouldn't be a guy that would, A, have a better opportunity, and B, was a guy that could deal with Jerry Jones. So, yeah, it's a mess in Dallas. And again, all this is simple to avoid if you're Jerry Jones. If you would hire a GM and let the GM do his job.
Just step back. Step back and be an owner of a team. And you could still be involved, like we were just talking about with Mark Cuban. You could still be involved. Stop making decisions on a day-to-day basis.
He's Alex, it's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But next, there are very few comparisons that we can legitimately make for Ryan Helsley. He's an all-star, all-world caliber closer right now. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He's likely to be potentially going to be traded this offseason. What is the comparison for such a trade? There might be one. It was about a decade ago. What does it mean for the Cardinals? We'll tell you next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you talking about my friends out at Ted Drew's, the famous frozen custard off of Chippewa. It's been there since 1929, a St. Louis tradition where 95 years and 4 generations of families have been serving that St. Louis and famous frozen custard. And here's the thing, you know about Ted Drew's, you've heard about Ted Drew's, but it's time to start making it a tradition for your family. There's nothing I love more than Friday nights in the fall, in the springtime, even when the Christmas trees get out there in December, going out there with my girls, walking around, enjoying the downtown area, but sitting back and having some famous frozen custard with Ted Drew's. And look, get whatever flavor you want. I think the coolest part now with all the holidays coming up, you could buy it in quart size, bring it home, freeze it, and then have that as dessert for all of your holidays that will be coming up. And while you're out there, walk across the parking lot. Check out the gift shop. You can shop for Ted Drew's apparel. You can shop for Ted Drew's souvenirs. You can even get Ted Drew's gift cards, which are the perfect gift to give somebody when you don't know what else to get them. Everyone loves that famous frozen custard. It is the best around. Check them out off of Chippewa. Make it a family tradition for you and yours. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Tara Hendrickson here. They Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues follow the Wild last night 4-1. They'll be back in action tomorrow night when they take on the New York Islanders. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for puck drop at 7. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, so there's not a whole lot of comparisons for what the Cardinals are potentially going to do this offseason with Ryan Helsley. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, I asked this the other day. Who's the comparison? Offseason trade, 1 year left of either arbitration or club control, dominant closer, guy that hits the market. Who is the trade? People brought up the Aroldis Chapman deal at the deadline. That's not really a comparison because it was at the deadline. Josh Hader at the deadline. There's been a few of them that have happened at the trade deadline, but that's a very different scenario where teams are desperate. They've tried their bullpen throughout the season. They have no alternatives. They can't go to the free agent market. They've got to have somebody right now, and the only way to get them is a trade. This is an offseason move that the Cardinals are trying to pull off here right now. There's not a lot of comparisons for it. Over at Viva Alberto, so that they did a really good job of chronicling this, Alex, and how rare it is for a player like Ryan Helsley to be traded during the offseason. The following players were mentioned as semi-comparable. Josh Hader, we mentioned the difficulty with that trade. That was a deadline deal, not totally one for one. Joe Jimenez, he was not quite the same player as Ryan Helsley. Craig Kimbrell really was not the same player at that point as Ryan Helsley is. He was also getting paid $16 million. So it's a tough comp there. Corey Knebel is potentially, I think, a non-tender candidate when he was dealt. So that's not one. Paul Sewald's just not the same. He doesn't have the same fireball stuff. Like, none of those really came close to what this Ryan Helsley deal could be. And then somebody on Twitter actually tweeted at me and said, hey, I think I've got a comparison for you. And I was like, okay, what is it? He said, what about, and this comes from the Redbird Farmhand on Twitter.
Oh, so Hein Bloom.
What about the deal that sent Chapman to the Yankees? Not the one that the Yankees dealt him at the deadline, but the offseason move where the Reds sent him to New York. It's like, okay, that feels like it's, I remember Chapman being more dominant at that point than what Ryan Helsley has been. I don't know if it's totally one for one. And I went into it. Ryan Helsley's been pretty close to what Aroldis Chapman was early in his career. Not one for one, but if you just especially look over the 2 years prior to being dealt, it's pretty damn similar, man. Here's where it falls a little bit short. That was the offseason that Aroldis Chapman he had the domestic violence situation. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, everybody thought he was going to go to LA with the Dodgers, and then the Dodgers backed out because of the incident. And so he ended up going to the Yankees, but there was the suspension that played into this, and there were a lot of questions as to whether or not he was even going to be able to be a part of the team. So it did change the ultimate return that they were able to get back in return for him. But the Yankees did send, 3 years prior, a first-round pick, guy that by the name of Eric Aguilo, I believe is how you pronounce his last name.
Not a good start for the Cardinals.
Did not end up making it to the major leagues, had 0 contributions for the Reds, but at the time was considered to be a really good prospect, and then just flamed out basically from the moment that he was traded to the Cincinnati Reds. Was never good again. But the year prior, 850 OPS for the New York Yankees minor league team in Double-A. Again, was a prior first-round pick a couple of years before. Decent return. Another guy that they got in this, Tony Renda. He did end up, I believe, having a cup of coffee at the major league level, but never really became much of anything. He also was a former top pick. He was a second-round pick a couple of years prior. And then they got a couple of arms thrown in there that weren't like big-time prospects or anything, but one of them was a later in his career, kind of similar to what the Cardinals got this past year in like a... Who was the guy that they got from the Red Sox? Why am I blanking on his name? The guy that they got in return for
Robertson.
Robertson.
The DFA. That's why you're not thinking of him.
And then the other one was a starter that, again, didn't really have much success at any point. Did briefly make the major leagues in Rookie Davis. So the return was highly underwhelming, but at the time it felt pretty decent. How do you guys feel about that as the comparison point? 4 players in return, couple of former top picks, but not top prospects. and a couple of pitchers thrown in that have a little bit of upside. If that was the kind of return that the Cardinals got, how would you feel?
I would feel fine with it because to me they're lottery tickets. When you trade Ryan Helsley, you're trying to identify the right younger players, and it didn't work for the Cincinnati Reds. They didn't identify the right guy, or maybe they couldn't get the guy that they wanted from the New York Yankees, and this is what they had to settle on. But if you're getting a couple of former top picks by a team, you hope that you're identifying, or if you're not getting the top picks, you're getting maybe a player that's not as high up on their record, but you look at that as a Cardinals team and say, hey, this guy we feel like has a high ceiling. It's a lottery ticket, and that's what you're getting with Ryan Helsley. I know people want the bigger return for Ryan Helsley. That's not going to be the case, but
I'm not sure they're going to get a top 100 prospect for him.
Oh, I don't think so either.
Yeah, you go lottery ticket.
Like, if that's the return, it's so frustrating that that's what you're getting back.
I mean, if you wanted a top 100 prospect, pressure dealt with the deadline.
The problem was at the time, I know some people did not believe this, but they were still in it. So it's really hard to make that move at the time when you're like, hey.
Yeah, but the writing was on the wall for that team.
I didn't feel like it was when they were at the deadline. I felt like that team was still very much in it, and I did think that they should try to continue to add. And trading away Helsley means you can't do anything. You shouldn't have added Fetty. You shouldn't have added Pham. You should have just sold everything, honestly. Like, you should have traded Kyle Gibson, trade Lance Lynn, trade everything that has 1 year of control remaining. You traded Paul Goldschmidt for whatever you could get at that point, because that would be truly waving the white flag. Helsley was the team. Having him allowed everything else to be possible. I didn't think you could do that this year. That would have been, honestly, maybe even worse than what the Milwaukee Brewers did whenever they did trade Hader, and that crushed their chances.
And they were in first in the division. The Cardinals were the last wild card at the deadline, if my memory serves correct. So it's not even like we were having a conversation about a team that was like 3 games out when they start. I think they were 5 out when they started September. Like, if that was the conversation, yeah, I could have convinced myself that you got to move Ryan Helsley at that point at the deadline. They were a playoff team at the trade deadline, so it made all the sense in the world to add. It is frustrating, but like, this is just where they're at right now.
Do you consider waiting?
No, because he's too injury prone.
And you're going to get less in return the longer you wait.
You might get more at the deadline.
Yeah, the deadline would be the one spot.
It's very possible they would get more by trading him at next year's deadline than this year's off.
But you take a chance he gets hurt.
Yeah,
you
won't.
Risk.
You still won't probably get a top 100 prospect. Well, we saw none of those get moved at this year's trade deadline. You would probably get maybe arguably a better package, but again, to me, it's too risky. I mean, look at, you mentioned him, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, David Bednar, one of the best closers in baseball, had a terrible season this year for the Pirates. Edwin Diaz, honestly, was not that great for the New York Mets. Like, to me, you just sell right now. You take on that package that you just said of what the Reds got. Yeah, they got a couple of former first-round picks, maybe get one from 2024, for example. I think you look at them and you say, okay, we need to move on from him, and we've got to do a good job of identifying who these guys are that we can take on as projects and really develop them in our system. And that's where you hope that Chaim Bloom, with John Mozeliak, who's going to be making this trade this season, they can identify the proper guys and bring this in. Because, again, I don't think you're going to win this trade, but in the long run, at a minimum, this needs to be a wash while you're going through this refresh.
That's where I'm at, too. This isn't so much on what the returns are in the past and you're not going to get a whole lot. This is on the Cardinals, making sure you identify the right player that you get back in return.
The other thing, too, is this may be one of those trades where you don't win this trade, but you win the trade of the trade. So if you bring in something that becomes valuable across Major League Baseball, then do you flip that at the right time to go get something else?
That's what I wondered about the Montgomery trade.
Yeah.
So JC could be a part of your long-term future, or he could be part of what ends up getting you something else. The Brewers did that with the Hader deal. The Brewers traded Hader, ended up getting Ruiz in the deal, and they traded him to get basically Contreras. So it wasn't one for one. It ended up being multiple moves, but that is a good part of it. The other thing that you could do is just start him next year, have him as a part of your rotation, see what that looks like. If it doesn't work, trade him at the deadline, because people are going to be able to then put him back into the bullpen. If it does work, now you've got a number 1 starter potentially that you can have long term, and you end up re-signing him or giving them a qualifying offer for just $20 million for the next year, and then you could get a comp pick if he ends up signing elsewhere. That, in my opinion,
we talked about this already and we shot it down. So stop bringing it back.
This kind of talk makes me want to duct tape you to the chair.
Coming up next, the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Okay, 3, 2, Oh, shit. Ready? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome in, everybody, for another episode of the Last Minute Blues podcast. Alex Ferrario with you, along with Donnie Fandango and Jeremy Rutherford, as we dropped a new episode earlier today, which you could check out on YouTube, also wherever you get your podcasts from. Plenty to discuss after the Blues fell in their home opener last night to the Minnesota Wild. So rather than me delaying, let's get right into it, because you know Donnie Fandango had a ton of questions. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll get deeper into the line combinations, because it's something that has stuck out to both me and JR in the early portion of the season. So we'll discuss that next here on the Last Minute Blues podcast on 101 ESPN. I think there's a mic on, T-Bone.
It's your mic. Oh, they can probably hear you through.
So, Alex, did you do a YouTube special during the break?
There was nothing that took place. T-Bone and I were just sitting in here calmly. I really was sitting in here calmly because I can't do anything else. Nothing happened. Not much. Why? What do you...
Our YouTube chat seems to be suggesting otherwise. Now, I told them they heard nothing, but I think they did. I was not in the room. I was out getting you something else to wear.
No, you heard nothing.
I went to our prize closet, and they had this beautiful crown that you are now wearing as you are royalty.
Assuming
here
King
on
Scott allowed this?
I just grabbed whatever I could find.
Okay, cool. So we're breaking the law on that one. That's good. That's good.
So what were you doing during the break in here?
Nothing, man. Just having a good time, chatting with my buddy T-Bone, just talking hockey, you know? Just recording the ins and outs for the Last Minute Blues podcast.
Oh, okay.
It's going to take place later tonight.
Yeah.
And I asked my board operator to get me set up so I could record those because I can't walk in the other room and record them.
I wanted it to go drag you to Prod 3. And
It would have been good. Just leave me in there. That would have been fine for the last hour.
Happened?
Well, I was about
I
to.
feel like that's not a big deal. People have heard you talk on the radio. They've heard you open up a segment, close a segment.
Well,
you do so seamlessly. You do a great job of that during the Blues pre and post games.
Well, and John Kiowski, Tommy Mattern, if you're listening in your rooms right now, just turn that radio dial down for a couple of seconds.
Hey, go open up the YouTube stream.
I was about to start recording and doing my countdown, and my headphones fell off my head. And
you reacted accordingly.
I reacted accordingly when something when the fellow listeners that have something happen that they were not planning to happen. What usually comes out of your mouth, BK?
Oh man!
Oh goodness!
Oh shoot!
Golly gee!
Oh
Golly
gosh
gee.
darn it! Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very polite about what I said, and then we moved on with it.
I didn't even hear you say it. I didn't even know what happened.
I just know I got a text from my wife while I was in the prize closet that said, I think the Last Minute Blues podcast is playing right now on YouTube, on your show. It was, but now it isn't. All I heard was Alex say, oh, bleep, and thought I would let you know.
Yeah. I probably was saying that because we were live on YouTube still, and I said, oh, no, and we fixed it. And then from there, you didn't hear anything else.
I leave this room for 2 minutes.
This will be the last time I'm taped to a chair. I made that for darn sure.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, the ability to come from behind, that's a positive. Relying on it too often, everything in moderation, Alex. We don't need this team to come from behind anymore. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario and Brandon Kiley. Alex, for the Major League Baseball playoffs, the next two games, I like the Dodgers, I like the Yankees. And the place that I'm going to be betting on them on the money line is Circa Sports in the state of Illinois. If you haven't downloaded the app, what are you waiting for? The time to do so is right now. Go ahead and go over there, bet on the Dodgers, bet on the Yankees, parlay that thing together. $100 bet wins you $271 by betting on those two. Alex, if I made the exact same bet, money line, Dodgers, Yankees over on FanDuel, I'm only winning $258. That's $13 less as my winnings if I bet on FanDuel as opposed to Circa. You're going to win more money. You're going to win the most money possible when you bet with Circa Sports in Illinois.
You got to do everything over there, whether those individual bets with the tight money line splits, or you make sure you put together those big Ferrario parlays, bring in the most money possible, because Circa's not limiting players based off of their winnings. Everybody is getting the same limits, unlike other sports books. So download the app today, whether it's for baseball postseason action, football this weekend, or maybe you're just into some hockey parlays. Put it all on Circa Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
One game okay, two games okay. It is now 4 straight games where you have had to chase a game from being down by at least 2 goals.
Yeah.
And you can come back on some teams that maybe aren't as deep as you are from time to time. Even that is hard. Mm-hmm. You will not come back on good teams more times than not. That is a trend that they'll need to stem real fast.
That was Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues last night. He's going to join us in about 30 minutes here on BK and Ferrario to discuss what he saw last night in the Blues' 4-1 loss at home in their home opener against the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild. With Alex
looks
and
like
T-Bone
he's
on
sleeping
BK.
over there with those glasses on. BK can't talk. Boy, this show.
And that all took place as the big boss, John Kiowski, is walking by. It was perfect timing.
I can't see him, so
timing.
I can't see anything because of these eclipse glasses. Oh, man. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to have to pull ourselves
So you pull yourself back. Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go. All right. If you haven't missed it, by the way, Alex is serving his punishment today. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. That's the place where you can go to find it. All right. Take 2. The Blues are losing a lot of games. The Blues are starting out from behind in a lot of these games.
T-Bone, do I look like Cyclops? I'll be back.
The Blues can't keep falling behind like this, right, Alex?
No, they can't, BK, because I don't know if you know this or not, but typically when you're trailing in games, it's hard to come back in.
It turns out that's the case.
Yeah. Well, no, they can't, because what you saw in the third period last night, to where a lot of people were saying that, oh, wow, the third period, they got outshot. They let Minnesota back into the game. Yeah, because the Blues, when you're down by that many goals, you play desperation hockey. You basically stop trying to play defense and push everything in the offensive side. They did it against San Jose, and it worked. And that's what Curbs was talking about on the return there. You can do that against the San Jose Sharks, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, teams that don't have much beyond their top line or top D pairing. But when you're going up against the Winnipeg Jets, when you're going up against the Edmonton Oilers, even though I know they're struggling right now, when you're going up against the Toronto Maple Leafs, even the Carolina Hurricanes this Saturday, you don't come back in games when you're down by 2 goals. So because there's no style to it. What teams do is what Minnesota did last night. They stand you up at the blue line because they know you're trying to get creative with your plays, and they'll stand there. They'll let you try and get past their wall, and when you can't, they dump the puck down the ice and say, nope, go try again. So the Blues were 29-1-1 last season when they were leading after 2 periods. That was tied for the fewest losses in the National Hockey League. They know what the recipe is to win hockey games. The problem is avoiding those unlucky bounces, and when they go against you, finding ways to get back into the hockey game.
Yeah, and if you're down like that, you get to the point where you're saying where they're going to pack it in, so it becomes a little harder for you offensively. And as much as we've talked about Drew Bannister and his juggling of the lines, we also haven't seen Drew Bannister if he's going to do that if they aren't in a game where they're going to be trailing.
Good point.
Because it almost, and maybe he still would do it. Again, we haven't seen it. my guess is he's starting to do this a lot because it's, oh, yeah, well, we're down again. We've got to try and generate offense. It's almost, I don't know if you want to call it panic, but it's this, okay, we've got to get back into this game right now. Otherwise, we're not going to come out of here with a point. And that's why you're starting to see him juggle it up a little bit because he can't have any consistency because they're always down. So it needs to go. His immediate reaction is, okay, I'm trying to prove myself in my first year in the NHL. Well, what am I able to do? What is in my control as the coach? Okay, well, we're down 2 goals. Let me just juggle up these lines and see if this ends up working for us when they go back out on the ice.
How much time do you guys think the Blues have spent leading so far this year?
Less than 5 minutes, the Vegas game. Well, no, because they never led in the...
They led the Seattle game.
Okay, so 25 minutes.
25 minutes leading?
Yeah.
That feels like a good guess.
Third period, and then I think they only led for like 5 minutes in the Vegas game.
I'll go like 30 minutes.
Or no, it was the San Jose game they scored first in, not Vegas. I'm going to say 25.
Exactly 30 minutes.
Wow.
Almost exactly 30 minutes because they led for the entirety of the third period against Seattle. That's it, though. Like they scored.
And where was the other 10 minutes?
The lead. They had 5 more minutes. Or excuse me,
25.
25 there, and then 5 more minutes against the Vegas Golden Knights
because they
as well.
scored at the end of the second period.
15 minutes left in the third period. So yeah, or 15 minutes into the third period. So
okay.
About 5 minutes left there. This team has spent almost no time leading. Basically, it was just that third period against the Kraken. That's the only real extended stretch of time that we've seen the Blues play with a lead. They're almost always trying to come from behind. That is not a sustainable way to win, man. I said this after the first 2 games and people got mad at me because it sounded like I was peeing in everybody's Cheerios as everybody was excited that they had started out the year with 2 wins. Totally reasonable. It felt to me a lot like what we had seen from the Cardinals early in the season, where yes, they were having some success once they got things back on track, but it was all one-run games. It was all because they had this great bullpen. They were finding a way to just get enough. The bullpen comes in, they lock it down, and you squeak through with a victory. We talked to Jim Bowden, and he crushed all of our dreams and said, this doesn't look like a playoff team. I've seen playoff baseball. This team doesn't resemble a playoff team. We're like, oh, Jim.
No, Jim.
Get out of here.
Poor Jim.
He was right. What we're watching right now with the Blues does not resemble a playoff hockey team. It's a fun team. They've got a lot of interesting young talent, but it has not coalesced in a way just yet that looks like a playoff hockey team. I still believe that they could, but so far this year, they are not playing the correct way early on often enough to be able to have sustainable 5-on-5.
The part with it, too, is you just isolate each individual game. The Seattle Kraken, this first 5 minutes of that game, you put it on Seattle, and you just did not find a way to break through. San Jose Sharks game, you do score first, you give up another one, and then the couple of bounces go their way. Vegas Golden Knights game, that's one that you dominated the first 10 minutes, nothing breaks through. Minnesota Wild game, you were the superior team in the first 2 or 3 shifts until you took that penalty. It seems that the Blues have the one bad thing happen to them, and then it's great, now we got to play comeback hockey. And I think in their mind, they believe they can come back in any game because they've done it already a few times. But that gets exhausting when you're doing that for 82 games. And on top of it, you're not going to get those bounces every single night. You're not going to get those opportune moments where the other team makes a timely turnover that allows you to capitalize every single night. You've got to figure out a way to score first and not just be superior to the other team because they've shown they can do that in the first period.
They were that last night.
You have to break through, though. It's one thing to be good in the offensive zone. It's another thing to finish in the offensive zone, and that's what you weren't able to do, and that's what Minnesota was able to do last night.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk about this a little bit more with Chris Kerber coming up at 1:30. What did he see from the Blues last night that he liked? What did he see from them that is a little concerning at this stretch, at this juncture in the season? We'll talk to Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, at 1:30. Coming up next, which teams with a loss in college football are most likely to end up in the college football playoff? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. T-Bone, have you had to lower his camera today?
Not yet.
You might need to now, man.
His camera's actually positioned perfectly.
He keeps getting lower and
the
lower
funny
in
thing
this
is
chair.
I'm seeing less and less tape.
The chair keeps
Well, yeah,
dipping.
because he keeps going lower.
The chair. I can't do anything about it.
Here, hold on.
Can't do anything about it.
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex is serving his punishment today.
This is awful.
He
I
lost
didn't
in
think
the
this
first
was going to
month.
be as bad. I was like, this is the easier one out of the three. I regret feeling the way I did at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, he lost the first month Bickham challenge, which means he had to be duct taped to a chair for the entirety of today's show. And that's exactly what's taken place so far. How's it been?
My body hurts, man. My left butt cheek's falling asleep. I don't sit this long typically in the show. I have had to pee for about the last hour. My nose is continuously itched, and I've had to itch it on this mic muff, which I believe this is my mic muff, but honestly, people take mic muffs all the time, so this might not be mine that I've been rubbing my face on. The tape is ripping the arm hair off of my arms.
I tried to help you with that.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You started to rip it, and it made it worse.
Okay. I did my best.
But overall, it's been great. And also, I got this like weird like push forward hairdo that you keep doing with me, so it's been a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish now I got another one on YouTube that's called Ferrario's Kink Show that has used a picture of me for their pro. Stop using give my name out your YouTube profile.
They're using your likeness.
I don't get NIL money, although you can Venmo me if you'd like. Ferrario ESPN.
Is that it? Okay.
I think.
Good to know.
Honestly, I have
don't
no
feel
idea.
like that's right.
Probably not. It's Ferrario something. Just look for Ferrario and you'll see my picture.
Look him up.
You've had to go to the bathroom, though, for the last
I've had to
hour?
pee for the last hour. Luckily, my bladder's pretty... Oh. Hey, I'm just happy it's the first one and not the second one.
Okay, so let's get to football. So
Turn off!
the college football playoff is expanded this year, much to the chagrin of Tanner Hendrickson. And there's a lot of teams that have one loss or more that are still eligible as of today. Alex, the only real undefeated teams that are like at the top of the standings: Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Miami, Iowa State, surpringly,
Frauds.
is still undefeated. BYU in the Big 12 is undefeated. Indiana has been awesome so far this year. Somehow they're ranked 16th in the rankings despite being undefeated. And then you've got like Pittsburgh and then Army and Navy. Of the other teams, the teams that have lost already, Alex, who do you think is the most likely team to end up in the college football playoff? I would go Ohio State.
Boy, I'd love to look through the standings right now and see the one-loss teams.
Here are some of your options,
to pick
Alex, because I know you
from.
don't have any ability to look through anything.
Love to just...
Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. These are the top-ranked one-loss teams. Clemson, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Boise State, Kansas State, and then you get some other teams. Ole Miss, Mizzou, SMU, Illinois, or Michigan.
I would say you're probably Ohio State. LSU's another one for me because it feels like you're getting a lot of the SEC teams beating up on each other. And if LSU can maintain that one loss, then I could see that happening. But it's most likely Ohio State, especially after watching those two teams play against each other. Those two teams, regardless of what the other records are, showcase that they're the two powerhouses in their conference.
I think the team for me would be Clemson. I mean, you look at their schedule is super easy in the ACC. They've only got one top 25 team left. Now, it is on the road. It's at Pitt, number 20. But their one loss was to Georgia. Now, I don't know how good Georgia is, but that game now, looking in hindsight on it, is one of those where I look at it and I say, I think it just snowballed on them. And you're going to get that every now and then in a game where just one or two things go wrong, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's, wow, we're down 3 scores. Ask Mizzou about their road trip to Texas A&M. Yep. I don't think Mizzou's that bad of a football team. I just think things snowballed on them. They couldn't get it under control. Next thing you know, you're blown out. I think Clemson's a good football team. I don't think they're great, but I think they're good. They've only got one loss. They should run through the rest of their schedule and beat Pitt on the road. Outside of that, they don't have anything that's really going to test them.
I've got a couple teams that I think will, as of today, I would pick them to make it, that already have a loss. Ohio State, I think, is going to make it. They have to go to Penn State. That's going to be a tough one. And then they finish out the year with Indiana and Michigan. They've got to take care of business, and then at a minimum, make sure that game against Penn State is really close. Because if you have 2 really close losses this year, they're by a point to Oregon on the road, and they're by, a possession against Penn State on the road, there's a pretty decent chance that team still gets in despite those 2 losses. So I think Ohio State, as of today, I'd be surprised if they're not in it. I totally agree with you, T-Bone. Bad loss against Georgia, just didn't show up for that game. But their schedule could not be any easier the rest of the way. I think they're going to end up in the college football playoff as well. I'll throw one more team in there. Notre Dame. I know they lost to Northern Illinois. That's a truly bad loss. Northern Illinois is not a great football team this year, and you lost to them at home. That's terrible. But they've looked pretty damn good ever since, man. And you look at what their schedule is coming up. You got Georgia Tech, who used to run the triple option, but no longer does. And then you got 2 triple option teams with Navy and Army that are on your schedule. Dude, like Florida State once upon a time looked like maybe that would be a tough game down the stretch. USC once upon a time looked like it could be a really difficult game in their final game of the season. I no longer feel that way. I think this team's going 11-1. I think they're probably going to end up at the college football playoff. I think we're all going to bet against them when they arrive in the college football playoff. But I think they would be likely to do so as well. I've got one more team for you. This is more of an outside looking in kind of a thing. I think Texas A&M's getting in. Because that Notre Dame loss is looking better and better as the season progresses. They've got LSU and Texas remaining as really difficult games. The LSU game, though, is at home. The Texas game also at home. If you lose one of those two, I think you're in. I think Texas A&M's getting in as well. So those would be my 4 teams that already have a loss that, as of today, I would pick to get in. Do you guys disagree wholeheartedly with me?
You think Texas A&M would get in with 2 losses?
I think they've got a decent chance. Yeah.
Wow. That one.
If it's as long as the loss is to one of those 2 teams that I mentioned, and it's not like a blowout. If you lose against LSU by a touchdown, I think you can overcome
That's just the hard part that we were talking about. I think it was either last week or 2 weeks ago. For all of these teams, and look, it is 12 teams getting in, but man, just a 2-loss team feels like it's tough to get in if you do have some undefeated ones and then a lot of 1-loss teams. But I understand the strength of schedule comes into that. And like you said, if A&M can pull off a victory over LSU, lose in a tight game against Texas, I guess that could be the exception with it.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. I think A&M's going to be a team that's probably going to get to the playoff. I mean, if they've got 2 losses, and like you said, that Notre Dame schedule's easy. They should be able to take care of business. Granted, they lost to Northern Illinois, so they may be more susceptible to a upset than we're giving them credit for.
Road games are tough. Like SEC, Texas A&M still has to go on the road at South Carolina, on the road at Mississippi State. Those are not gimmies.
Yeah. What I find so fun about this conversation is we just ran through 1-loss teams, right? Let me read off some 1-loss teams that we did not mention to make the college football playoff. Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. 3 teams right there. We did mention Ole Miss a little bit, but
2 losses already.
They have 2 losses. Those 3 teams though are 3 teams that are like viewed as like, oh well, they're locked. 12 teams, man, they were locked with 4 teams. I don't know if those 3 teams are making the playoff. Alabama and Tennessee play this weekend. They're probably going to eliminate one of each other. Yep. Georgia's got a very tough schedule the rest of the way.
Including this weekend against Texas on the road. Then they still have to go to Ole Miss, and they play against Tennessee head-to-head. These teams are going to eliminate each other before we get to the end of the season. This is why, Alex, you said, can they really lose another game and still get in? Potentially because of these teams that we're talking about here. Like, let's say Tennessee beats Alabama this weekend. Alabama still has a game against Missouri and at LSU. Those are not easy games. They could easily go 1-1 against them. Boom. Now you're up to 3 losses for Alabama. Well, they're now behind Texas A&M. Tennessee, I just said they potentially win this game against Alabama. All right. What about against Kentucky? Do we think that that's a gimme? I don't. What about against Georgia on the road? I don't view that as a gimme. And then finishing out the season on the road at Vandy, once upon a time, maybe a gimme. Not anymore, man. They could easily finish with 3+ losses as well. So it's a difficult path for these teams that before the season I thought, shoo-in, definitely get them into the college football playoff. I don't feel that way about a lot of these teams right now, and that's why Missouri, Illinois, super alive, man. Very much alive in the college football playoff conversation, despite Missouri having an unbelievably lopsided loss and Illinois already having a loss in their schedule earlier this season, which now does not look as good as it did at the time.
What? Penn State's still a pretty good football team, sir.
Yeah, well...
I think Penn State's going to beat Ohio State.
We'll see.
You relax over that. That was blasphemy.
Can I just talk to Alex for a second?
No, I ain't listening to you.
In my mind, they lost to Kansas.
Yeah, I know, buddy. I saw your face. I saw your face when you said that. And then
I was like, what are you talking about?
I looked at T-Bone, and I'm like, 1 loss, Oliver. That doesn't look good. What?
I was like, what?
In my head, I was like,
wins are
they lost to Kansas at the time.
The Kansas one doesn't look as good now. I agree with that.
That's on me.
They only lost by 14 to Penn State.
Not only was it a good loss at the time, it's even a better loss today than it was then.
Yeah, that was
banner day for your boy BK.
A bad day.
At least I'm not tied to a chair.
About as bad as when you were like, Mason Wynn can be the guy they build around because of war.
I've had some really good Cardinals takes lately. Mason Wynn is the #1 player to build around for them. Ryan Helsley should be used as a starter next year.
That was definitely not one of them.
Those are some good takes.
Those are some Mo takes.
We'll see what else we can come up with the rest of this
See if you got any Mo. T-Bone, I'd high-five you, but I can't lift my hand up.
Hey, catch Anthony Stalter and Ray from The Riz Show Thursday night at Hot Shots in Fenton from 6:30 to 8:30. Come on out, hang out with the guys. Watch some Thursday night football between the Broncos and the Saints. More importantly, hang out with the guys. While you're there, get signed up for the Point and 101 ESPN giveaways. Enjoy a cold Bud Light Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30. Rafe and Stalter at Hot Shots in Fenton, refreshed by Bud Light. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Chris Kerber. He's the voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, you know, one of the reasons that I like working with local companies, and it's not just because all companies hire, local people for our community. But if you have a company like Classic Air Care that's a local company, they participate in the community. They support community events. They support organizations. They're a sponsor of the St. Louis Blues and, of course, of 101 ESPN. They are a member of the community and want to play a role, not just service people's houses. They know that to do what they need to do, their employees have to feel committed. And when you know that you're calling a neighbor that's going to come in to fix your HVAC unit if you need it, Classic Air Care is the company you can count on. So they employ the local folks. They are involved in the community, and that's why you should support them as well. So as we head into the winter months, make sure that an HVAC unit has been serviced. You can book an appointment online at classicaircare.com. If you're in the market for a new one, now is the time to get on the schedule and get it. They've got them in stock. Make sure that you give Classic Air Care a chance to service your home. They've been making people comfortable since 1926, and I'm telling you, They support the local communities. You support them, and that's how the world goes around, and proud to be a part of it. Classic Air Care. Book an appointment online at classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues fell to the Wild last night in their home opener 4-1. They'll be back in action tomorrow when they host the New York Islanders. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. And the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, joins us next here on BK and Ferrario. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Bellhop, I'm BK. That's Tanner Hendrickson. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys want to check out how Alex is doing,
It's not even clever.
YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL is the place where you can go.
At least I called you swordfish and people understood what I was making reference to.
You can explain that one?
The nose. I thought it was pretty spot on, actually. I can understand how you can misconstrue that, though, because sometimes the Adam's apple sticks out further than the nose.
Come on, man. All right. He's Alex. I'm BK.
Got him!
Happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline right now, as we do each and every Wednesday at 1:30, to be joined by the voice of the Blues. He's Chris Kerber. He's going to class up this joint a bit as Alex is trying to serve his punishment right now, tied to a chair, taped with duct tape today for 3 hours.
I just saw the hats backwards.
You look like a bellhop, man. I'm sorry. All right, Curbs, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, and I think that's a great use of duct tape.
No, it's not, Curbs.
It's the best use of duct tape. It has a lot of uses. This is certainly one.
Curbs, as a fellow individual who has a lot of hair all over their body, this is not going to be fun at the end of this show.
Listen, I went to I was dealing with plantar fasciitis at one point in time. And so I go into this guy's making some insoles for some shoes. And he says, I'm going to show you how sometimes you don't have insoles. And he says, I'm going to show you how to tape your foot. So he takes out this tape, and it's got this design on this tape, and he tapes the foot. I'm like, wow, that's actually, like, it's amazingly supportive. You know, and I said, well, okay, I can go get some of that tape. Where'd you get it? He goes, it's duct tape. I went, it's what? He goes, yeah, it's just duct tape. He goes, I just don't tell any of my clients that. And then because of the women that come in, they like different colors and designs. So I got duct tape that has designs on it. And he literally did it with duct tape. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's the KT tape, which is basically just duct tape anyway. So I respect it.
Yeah.
All right, Curbs, let's get into the Blues. Last night was I felt like I watched a different game than a lot of the people that have been on our text line throughout the show today. I actually didn't think the Blues necessarily played a bad game. I thought they were pretty good for the first 40 minutes. There were a couple of, many really, very bad breaks for them, including having a goal go in half a second after the buzzer sounded. The puck was deemed dead when they were about to score as well. I didn't think they necessarily played a bad hockey game last night, but I'm curious your perspective on this. What did you think of the Blues' overall game last night?
Yeah, I don't think that they played a bad hockey game. I do agree. Drew Bannister talked about the first 40 minutes in his postgame presser as well. They just didn't get some of the early bounces, I think, to show their hard work and what it was. So, you know, but in the end, what they really didn't do in that game was they didn't battle hard enough to overcome the adversity. Okay, so you know, you get that high sticking call that nobody knew originally where it originated from, and then we found out after the game. All right, and then that goal was scored, and then there was just some unlucky bounces. You know, Joe Vitale thought that play might have been offside initially too, and Nick Leddy referred to that offside play, you know, in his post-game sound as well. But if you go look at it, Colton Parayko stands up on Kaprizov, the puck pops up into the air. You know, there was just some unlucky things, and it was one of those kind of games, guys, where, and it just happens. Like no matter what, like Minnesota could misfire on a puck, and it was ending up right on somebody's stick. You know, off a skate, right to the back door. So now, having said that, you know, in talking to some of the guys today, you make your luck, and there just wasn't a feeling that, you know, the consistency from one line to the next was what they needed to overcome, what they needed to do to battle. So I agree with you. I don't think it was a badly played game, but there wasn't enough done in that game for the Blues to find a way to win it.
Curbs, how much of that lack of consistency with those line combinations comes into just kind of juggling them up as much as Drew Bannister has in games?
You guys had all that duct tape and you didn't put it over the mouth, huh?
Well, you know, figured that would be a little bad for the radio aspect of it, Curbs.
I don't know. I think a couple hours of would have been pretty good radio.
It's only in the evenings, Curbs.
I'll give some to you, Curbs. I've got some extra.
Yeah, just use it at the games.
Yeah, you know what? Look, I literally was just talking to Ryan Suter about some of this stuff, and Ryan Suter was like, I think we have actually a really good team here. He goes, we just got to have things come together the right way. You're talking about 8 or 9 guys coming into the lineup, and something we experienced in 2019. I don't think we're as deep as 2019, obviously, but from a standpoint of you look at the amount of new players, there's still some gelling that has to happen in there. And then the other thing, guys, is, you know, whether you look at line chemistry, however you look at it, you've got to give the Jake Neighbors, the Zachary Bolducs, and some of those guys chances to really grow within their roles. And if too early in the season, you're juggling things, you're moving things around, and you know, I've talked to some coaches, and sometimes coaches believe that, look, sometimes when you change a line, you're actually giving players an excuse to say, oh, it's his fault, or it was that guy's fault. And sometimes you got to let the lines figure it out themselves. So, yeah, Alex, part of it is chemistry, part of it is there, but also some of it is just a matter of more time, you know, together on the ice, and that's going to come. And now the key is you hope you just don't fall far behind, you know, while you're getting there. But I'll tell you something. There's a togetherness with this group, guys, and you're just going to have to trust me on this. Having been on the road with them last week and in the room a little bit, there's a togetherness with this team that I think can grow into something special that, honestly, I don't think I felt from the group in the last 2 years.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues. He's joining us here on 101 ESPN for just another couple of minutes. Curbs, I want to hear from you what the perspective was that you heard today from the Blues. Why'd they decide to break up that fourth line?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's, you know, well, even though you like what you've seen in that line, I'll give you my perspective on sometimes how it goes. And the only reason we had a team function earlier today, so I didn't have a chance to talk with the coaches about this and hear from it. But
no problem.
You know, bottom line is you've got some guys that you've got to get in the lineup early in the season. You want to get that going, but also as solid as they've been, you know, you're still 0-4 or you've still fallen behind by 2 goals in 4 straight games, and you're 2-2. You know, and so, you know, part of it is do you move a guy up a line? You know, do you create something that's a little more there? And when some guys are going well, you want to try to get them some ice time. So there's a lot of different factors in that, BK. A specific answer for you don't have yet, but you know, that's typically what goes into that. Because look, guys, here's the reality. As good as that WTF line has been from a consistency standpoint, the problem is if through 4 games, if you're saying that your most consistent line has been your 4th line, that's not a good thing.
Totally agree.
Now,
but putting Kapanen out there on it was part of what was a little surprising to me. If they had bumped somebody down, fair, right? Fair game. Replacing Walker with Kapanen is a little surprising to me.
Yeah, well, whether it's a speed, I mean, look, I don't think Nathan Walker deserves to come out of the lineup. Now, just because they practice this way today doesn't mean that they will do it. Sometimes it is a precursor, as you know, BK. So We'll see what happens tomorrow, you know. But Joey and I talked about this. Nathan Walker's one of those interesting guys where I think no matter how good or how hard he plays, when it comes down to numbers, he's going to find himself as the one guy to come in and out because they know that they can do that with him. They know that his attitude is going to be great. Okay. And, you know, you want to keep Kapanen, who's now been out a couple games, going there. So, you know, from that standpoint, you add some speed. You want to see what Cap can bring to the table still, and you've got to work some guys in. Sometimes there's a lineup change just because you got to get some other people in and you keep things going. And the Blues, right now being healthy, have that benefit of being able to make those decisions.
Kerbs, one other line change that I know was impacted because of something that's been nagging him is Nick Leddy. But Joey and I talked about this last night on postgame. I believe it's 7 even strength goals Leddy and Parayko have been on the ice for so far through the first 4 games of the season. What stuck out to you about that pairing?
Well, first off with Leddy, and guys, I'm not making excuses, you know, for anybody here. But prior to that giveaway last night that led to a goal, he had blocked a shot just off the inside part of the knee. I don't believe he was on the ice today, right? He blocked a shot off the inside, you know, part of the knee, you know, and then trying to get that feeling back and going. And that's when he takes 2 strides and tries to fire that puck. Didn't see the guy, and boom, you know, it's in the back of your net. This is a veteran defenseman, and with him not out there, Suter was up there with Parayko, you know, in terms of practice today. So. What am I seeing with that pairing? Just some bad luck. You know, I'm not overly, you know, worried about what's going on there. I think there's 2 veteran guys. I believe the water finds its level. You know, so I'm more concerned, to be honest with you, about turnovers at the blue lines from forwards, and then obviously defense. There's a team game aspect of it, Alex, rather than just that one pairing for me. That makes a big difference. So. It's early in that sense, but I look at 2 things. One, we're not getting the puck in deep enough on the forecheck. Too many guys are doing flybys. We didn't get to the middle of the ice last night. Too many shots were getting blocked and not getting through. You know, and then turnovers at the blue line put immense pressure on that defensive group, and that to me is an all-around team game. Sounds like I'm skirting your question a little bit there, but I don't think it's just easy to say, well, those 2 guys on that pairing have been a problem.
Hey, Kerbs, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with us today. We'll be listening to you on the call tomorrow night. Blues versus the Islanders back in action as they continue this homestand. Pre-game with Alex starts at 6. Puck drop for that one. Blues versus the Islanders on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Appreciate the time as always. Talk to you again soon, my man.
All right, guys. Have a great day. Take plenty of pictures.
Will do. That's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues. Appreciate his time as always here on 101 ESPN. Listen, I get it. I know that they said the same thing earlier this year with the Cardinals, where we got upset. Hey, why isn't Mason Wynn in the lineup? Can somebody explain it to me? Anybody? Will anybody explain it? And at the time, they were like, well, you know, we got to get Brandon Crawford in there. And then eventually we learned, well, you know, Mason was dealing with this back issue, and this is our way to be able to keep him healthy. I do think they also wanted to get Brandon Crawford in the lineup to keep him fresh. They didn't know what Mason Wynn was going to be this year. We didn't know what Mason Wynn was going to be this year. I don't know what's going on with Walker. Maybe he's dealing with a little something that's nagging him as well. That's possible. I want to leave that open-ended because if that's the case, hey, man, more power to him. Get him a game off, and we'll get him back in there on Saturday or whatever. I don't love it. I think you know what you have with Kapanen. I've been saying this all along. His role this year, and I think that really good coaches, and I believe Bannister could and would do this, would say, hey, listen, Kapanen, your role this year is going to be as our 13th forward. And if anybody goes down, we know that you're going to be ready to go. But in the meantime, ice time is going to be really, really limited for you. And we're going to need you to stay ready if and when that time comes for you, similar to what they're doing with Perunovic. Hey, Perunovic, you're the 8th defenseman this year.
Yep.
Stay ready. If something happens where we need you, especially if one of our quarterbacks on the power play goes down, be ready. But in the meantime, we're not going to be able to really have a spot on the lineup for you. I don't love that they feel the need to put Kapanen in there so often.
It's not so much Kapanen as it is Walker's coming out. Because I think if we were talking...
It's both to me. I don't really see any player that Kapanen should be in there over right now.
You're right. Because the next guy you'd be going to is Bolduc. And, we've already gotten upset about Kapanen playing over Bolduc. But it's just tough to take out a guy who knows his role. And Kerbs and Joey are right. Like, Walker's just one of those guys that it doesn't matter what NHL team he's on. I mean, look, the Blues were able to get him from the Washington Capitals, and he's gone through waivers a couple of times, and nobody has taken a shot at him.
Understood. But, man, he's a good player that knows his role and plays it well.
Sometimes you're those guys, that when you do that and you do it well, you come out of the lineup for the sake of getting another guy in for just a fresh face. And again, I don't like it because Nathan Walker's a guy that understands the pace and the pulse of a game. And I think those are so few and far between to where guys understand when they should step in and when they shouldn't step in. And Walker proved that against the Seattle Kraken. But, I mean, you've seen it countless times to where guys are fine in the NHL, but it just unfortunately is a numbers game, and they look at it and they say, yeah, but we know you'll bring this next time when we put you in. This could be a Kapanen goes in tomorrow night, and they say we just want to get a different look, and it doesn't look good, and then go right back to WW2
That's my guess
on Saturday.
what happens. And beyond that, I don't hope that Walker is injured. I don't hope that at all. I kind of hope just for the sake of this, like being more easily explainable, that there's something that he's kind of maintaining right now. They're trying to get him a maintenance state kind of a thing. That's I've got my fingers crossed for that. We'll learn more about that tomorrow. Don't want to lose my mind too much. All right, coming up next, we'll let the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN. He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. It's been a wonderful day here on BK and Ferrario. And if you missed any of the show today, check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. I would personally recommend today watching it. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL. Alex has been serving his punishment from the first month of our Pick'em Challenge. Each and every month we do this. At the end of the month, whoever has the fewest points ends up getting punished. Alex's punishment today was being duct taped to his chair.
Move his mic so the people can see what's going on right now. Oh, there we go. Alex, who's the podcast presented by? Dobbs Tire and Auto Center. Yeah, very good.
How do you feel like it went today, Alex?
Great show. Oh, God, it hurts to talk. It's like super glue. Oh, my gosh. It was a great show today. I thought we had a lot of great breakdown. We were very serious.
How do you feel about the Blues?
This is what the people want.
Today?
I feel great about the Blues. They played like a solid 40 minutes of hockey, and they just got to find that other 20 minutes of hockey. Am I done yet? Will you cut me out, please? Just get me out of here. I've legitimately had to pee since 11:45.
Where do you think this ranks among the worst punishments that we've had? Because I still think T-Bone's beer mile, like the end of that was as good as chef's
beer
kiss.
mile. Pregnancy simulator.
Oh, that was a good one.
The chest waxing.
That was a good one.
The mayonnaise in the coffee was good.
Oh, that one was bad.
The baby food was not good. I did not enjoy that one.
Yeah,
one bit.
baby food was nasty.
I'm excited for the egg one. The cracking of the eggs over the head. That's going to be a good one.
I pray that you get
the
you
blow
lose
up
that
doll
one.
should be fun.
I pray that you lose that.
That out of
egg one.
context would sound really weird on the radio.
Well, considering what today's been like for me, yeah, it absolutely would. I could promise our viewers one thing, that if BK loses that, I am going to I am going to obliterate you with that egg.
I'm going to go ahead.
I know what he's doing. He's trying to get me out so he could rip it off of my arms before we end this podcast. T-Bone, you better get the dump button ready.
No, don't do it. You've already cursed once today.
No, that was on YouTube. It never happened. Are you cutting a hole in my shirt?
I don't think so.
Come on, man. This is a nice golf shirt right now. Katie just texted me as I turned on YouTube. What is going on?
All right, you ready?
Oh, boy.
Oh, my gosh. Don't. Dude, don't.
No,
Oh, my God. 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 Oh, my God.
All right, we're going to take this off of that. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, it's wrapped around me twice. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. This is so bad. Oh, this is so worse than the waxing. Ah! Ah!
Oh, look at that. He's free.
Son of a nutcracker. Come on, man. Rip the last one off. Hey, come on. Rip it. Go. 1, 2, 3. Oh! Okay. I'll get the rest.
I wish. Hold on. Let me turn on the mic here so they can see Jamie's reaction.
Check out the podcast, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL.
Arm looks
we'll
like
see
I
you
went
guys
90.
tomorrow. Fastlane's coming up next.
Do I look like Cyclops?